This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to andBeyond Ngala, and a special warm welcome to all of the groups and families joining us. We've got groups from the USA, the Netherlands, UK, Canada, Italy, and South Africa. So a very, very warm welcome to everybody. My name is Eric. Behind camera is Owen, and this afternoon we came down towards the riverbed. We started off the morning looking at that male leopard, and we were hoping that we might see some tracks or signs of him. So we actually came and stopped by these giraffe to see if they might point us in the direction of this leopard. And when these giraffes see predators, they tend to watch them intently. So they stand in one position and they look down at the leopard to see if it's a threat before moving on, and none of them are doing that whatsoever. A lot of them are just feeding around one bush, and so we treat it to a really, really special sighting. There's a group of 3 over here, there's one directly behind us, and there's 2 a little bit more to the left. So in total 6 giraffe, very, very close by to one another. It's such a beautiful sighting to see so many in such a close-knit group. And that one that we're watching now feeding, we'll get to see it using its really big long tongue that it uses. And I don't know if we can see it, but this tree has got lots and lots and lots of very sharp thorns that it uses to try and protect itself from animals like giraffe. So it'll be nice to see how these giraffe use their tongues and their lips to get around feeding. Ooh, maybe lost interest there. That's what we call the commentator's curse. Miss Anna, it looks like there's lots of clouds, but these clouds don't look too threatening at all. They look quite menacing, but they're very low-lying clouds. There's no really big build-up of those cumulonimbus clouds that we typically get in the area to bring rain to us. Our rainy season is pretty much over now. We haven't had rain in the last 3 weeks or so. So I don't think we'll be in danger of getting the rig wet at all, so we should be out here the whole afternoon. And we're going to stick around these giraffe for a little bit and see what they get up to. And in the meantime, we'll send you across to Djuma to say good afternoon to Tristan.
Well, Eric, hopefully those giraffes spot you a leopard, and you'll be able to then find him a lot easier. It's always nice when you get another animal to help you. Their senses are typically better than ours, and so often they can help. But as Eric mentioned, my name is Tristan. On camera I've got David this afternoon, and well, we are going to be out and about on the sort of northern part of Djuma today. We're going to follow up on our buffalo herd that we saw this morning, see what's happening with them. I had a report that the lions came into Djuma but then came out again. What did you see, David? Nothing. All right. Thought David maybe saw something. But unfortunately it sounds like the lions came in and then went back out into Buffelshoek, but we're going to just go check in case they came in again. It's been a really cool day, as Eric was mentioning. There's lots and lots of cloud cover. And so that means that the cats can walk around quite a bit without getting too hot. And so it's possible that our lions maybe, or hopefully, come back onto Djuma, and maybe they might pursue those buffalo a little bit later in the day. So I think that's what we're going to do. And failing that, well, we'll look for any sign of Tingana, the male leopard. We'll look for some ellies. There were lots of those this morning. Maybe we'll get lucky even with Tundi. So lots of options up in the northeast corner. I haven't been up that way, so I'm going to go and check around there and see what there is. I did see some leopard tracks now, which I think are the same female tracks that I was following this morning, but unfortunately now they are just covered in sand from the wind, and also there's a vehicle that's driven over the top of them, so it's going to make that a little bit tricky. But that's why I'm just checking up in this section in case she's maybe lying up somewhere here. And so while I check here, let's send you across to Lauren so she can tell you what her plan is for the afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome on board. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here from all around the world, I believe. My name is Lauren and I do have a BK on camera today, and we're heading south. I don't really have any plans. I always try not to have plans because you can get too fixated, so I'm just heading south, bumbling about, as I like to say. And of course, we're very much looking forward to hearing from you. You must ask us questions. Nice questions. The email address will pop up, but it's kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. And the first 45 minutes, of course, are dedicated to the children. We will take questions only from the kids, so we really, really look forward to hearing from you. You can ask us anything about the environment here, the animals, anything that you really, really want to know. You can also ask us tricky questions too, and see how we can handle them. But it's already a cold afternoon. I've got my long trousers on today and I've got a cardigan on. So it's already chilly. I'm bracing for what's going to come in the next 3 hours, but I think I might pop into Chitwa and see if we can spot any leopard tracks down there. There's lots of leopardesses I would love to see. So as I bumble on forward, we are going to send you all the way back across to andBeyond Ngala with Eric.
We haven't moved at all, and these giraffes are still in exactly the same spot. In fact, there were a few that decided to try and move off. They started walking from right to left. They stopped, looked to see the rest of the group not moving, and they turned and walked straight back. And so there are now 5 of them in that one bush. I can see that one on the right hand side, the one over there, there's 2 standing right next to one another, and then there's another one that's enjoying its meal so much. There you go, it's just picked up its head. It was literally in the bush. Sure. Yeah, Adam, that's a good question. If giraffe eat fruit, I would imagine so. I haven't seen it myself, actually. They tend to more stick to the acacia species and the trees with very, very sharp thorns. And so I haven't seen them eating fruit myself. I would just imagine, I know they've been seen eating a sausage tree fruit before. Somebody's seen that on the reserve, and that's a very, very big, long, hard fruit. And so I'm sure they might supplement their diet every now and again with the odd fruit or two. One thing that we see them eating quite often is bones, which is something that people are surprised by. And they literally pick up the bone off the ground, they chew it for maybe a few minutes, and then they drop it again. And that's for them to get extra calciums, like the phosphates and the calciums and extra minerals that they might lack in their diet. It's a really cool shot of them standing face to face with one another. See, the one is standing a little bit further away, so it does seem quite a lot shorter, but I think they might be the same size. But that one facing away and the one in camera, I mean, if you look at the top of the horns over there, they're nice and thin, and then more importantly, they've got those black tufts of hair on top of those horns. So those are females. Hannah, you're 12 years old and you're asking about why giraffe have got such a straight face. It's put a smile on my face. I mean, I haven't really thought about it before, but I think if you look at the way that giraffe feed, they feed by these putting their heads in and amongst these very, very thorny trees. And so if you've got a long, thin face, you might be able to reach in to the little nooks and crannies of the branch and the tree, like that one is doing right now, actually. And so they'll use that, and then if they can't reach the branch that they want, then they'll use that long tongue of theirs to stretch out and wrap around the branch and bring it back in. So I'm sure that's why they have a long face. Long face, but even a longer neck. And I mean, I'm sure all of these ways that these giraffes have evolved is to help them feed and get nutrients like... Okay, so we think we might leave these giraffes. They're walking into the sun. It's quite a difficult view, and then they're going to disappear. not too long now. So we're going to send you across to an animal that reminds me a lot of Owen, and Tristan has it with them.
Indeed, they do have a very cheeky face, and that's because they are cheeky. These guys are some of the naughtiest animals that we have to live with out here in the bush. They are the daylight cheeky little monsters that come into our camp and cause havoc, them and the baboons, and then at night it's the hyenas. But it's quite a cool sighting of this particular vervet monkey, and the reason why is because very, very, very seldom do vervet monkeys sit in big dead trees like this in the open. Monkeys mostly prefer sitting in trees that have quite a lot of leaves, and the reason why is that they get hunted by birds of prey. So something like a crowned eagle or a martial eagle could potentially grab them, and in a tree like that they're very, very, very exposed, which means that they are open to being attacked, and so they typically don't like trees like this. In fact, it is the first time I've seen a monkey in this particular tree, and I'm surprised, like I say, that it's sitting there. I'm also surprised that it's on its own. Normally monkeys are in little groups together, and they then look out for one another. So I don't know where the rest of the troop is, but you can see it's coming down now. The one thing about the monkey being up in that big tall dead tree is that we know that there is probably very little likelihood that there is a predator nearby. So lions or leopards, from up there it would have been able to have seen those cats and would have been making a big noise, and then we would have known that there was something around. So I don't know what it's doing up there, why it's on its own, but well, maybe it just feels like it. Maybe it decided it was cold because of the wind today and has gone to get some sun up in the tree. A tree with lots of leaves will be too shady and probably wouldn't be very nice to sit in on a day like today. Also, if you get hit by leaves in your face every 5 minutes, wouldn't be that fun either. But I'm sure that monkey's going to make its way towards the lodge. The lodge is behind us, so maybe it knows we're out for drive now and it's time to go and have a little look around and see what's happening at camp. Run and by, it's a good question this. You're asking, do safari guests ever go walking around in the bush, or are they always in the Jeep? So, yes, guests do go walking in the bush, but that's normally if they are with a guide. So if, let's say, I have guests with me now, then I can say to them we can go for a walk, and that would normally mean that I would have a rifle with me, and then I would take them, and we could go for a walk, and we'd go look at all kinds of things, and sometimes we might even see some of the big animals on foot. That's the kind of good way, but sometimes guests are very, very naughty. And, you know, we tell guests when they go and check in at the lodges that they, have to stay in their rooms between drives and that they can't just go walking around. But every now and then some guests don't listen and they just go and do their own thing. I've had guests at Chitwa before that saw a herd of elephants on the other side of the dam, and I happened to just be walking around the camp and noticed these people walking towards the elephants as though it was a zoo and that the elephants were not going to hurt them, and I had to quickly kind of run out there, grab them and get them back to the lodge before they got squashed. And when I asked them why they were doing it, they said because their camera was too small from the lodge, and that they thought it would be nice to go and get photos. So it's happened to me there. I've seen it. In fact, every lodge I've worked at, there's been an incident where guests have gone walking without permission. So if you're with a guide, then it's okay. Then the guests do walk and we do get them off of the cars. But you shouldn't be walking around on your own. So unless there's a guide with you, it's not good to be walking around out here. There's lots and lots of things that can hurt you and eat you, and not just animals. There's snakes and scorpions and spiders and certain trees that can cut you or give you irritating itches or even sting you. We have a thing called stinging nettle here, and it can be very painful if you walk into that. So it's always good rather to go with a guide and not to go walking around on your own. So this morning when our buffalo came into Djuma, this is where they came in. They walked in from here and they drank at the dam behind me, and then it looked like they were going kind of more towards the east. So I'm going to just loop around and see where they've gone and whether they're still here. In the meantime, though, I'm going to send you to Lauren, who's got another herbivore, but a far more common one.
You ever have the feeling you're being watched? I do. And I think this gentleman at the front also does. There's someone behind you watching you. He's real, I promise. He's not a statue. Probably a little bit nervous. The weather's really turning on us. And the wind is howling. And this makes animals like Impala get slightly nervous because they can't really hear. Or they can't hear as well as they normally can. And they also struggle to determine exactly where that sound is coming from. BK, can you just go back? Oh, sorry, he's running away. He had some curious markings on his face, didn't he? Ooh. Yeah, I think they look like scratchies too, but I can't figure out exactly what they... Hello? Can we help you? I think he thinks we can't see him, and he's hidden behind that stick. I don't think he realizes that we actually can see him, and that stick is very small. Aren't they just gorgeous? Impalas are gorgeous. Sean, you're 15 and you're asking about cloud cover and if it affects hunting. Not really, no. Most of the predators here, most of them, let's say your lions, your leopards, and your hyenas are primarily nocturnal. So what that means is they're more active during the night. They walk at night, they're very mobile. They'll scent mark, they'll patrol, and they'll hunt. They can also hunt during the day, but it's mostly at night. So their eyes are very much adapted to seeing in either low light conditions or no light conditions. They've got a special layer on their eye called the tapetum lucidum, which reflects light back twice onto the retina so they can see. The lions and leopards have got special white lines under their eyes that also help to reflect light. So they're very well adapted for life in the dark. They have we're both doing the same thing, copycat style. Oh, yes, we are. What's going on, you pair? And they also have very, very good hearing, so they don't always need to rely on their eyesight. They've also got such a keen sense of smell. So they're perfect masters of hunting in the dark. So cloud cover really, really doesn't affect the predators. But temperature would. So when it's cooler, it normally means the predators are more mobile. But the likes of cheetahs and wild dogs, which we do get here, wild dogs more often than cheetahs, they are more diurnal, and that means that they're... Oh, this is fantastic views here. Well done, Lauren. Would you like me to move, BK? Oh, we'll go forward. And that means they're more active during the day. So they have evolved different adaptations that will make them specialized hunters for daytime. They still can see well at night, but your wild dogs and your cheetah you will normally find hunting during the day. Oh, you're allowing 2 oxpeckers to come on your face. Let's take a look at this guy's face. What's happened to you? Barbara, you're 14 and you want to know how high antelopes can jump. Antelopes cover quite a lot of species, so I think we'll answer that. Impala. Now, Impala are very famous. Ouchie. I think you have a bird in your ear. Ow, ow, ow. Impalas are famous for something called stotting. And what this means is a specialized way of jumping. And they do this, and it's incredible. They will also do this when a predator's present, and they're trying to say, I can see you, you can see me. I'm not trying to hide, but look at me. You'll never catch me. I can jump so high, and I can also run so fast. It's a display. It's a sort of warning to the predators. Don't bother coming to me because I can outrun you. I am fast. So I believe that they can jump about 3 meters high, which is 9 feet. Ouchie. And they can also jump 12 meters long, lengthwise. So that is, of course, 36 feet. So they're incredible jumpers. They're very athletic. And they're nimble on their feet because they're ungulates. So they're essentially walking. Is that scratches on his body as well, or is it just the fur? It's just the hair. I think it's just his face that's scratched. He's an old boy. Look at his ear. It's also tattered. So yes, they're very, very adept for jumping, and this really suits the environment that you find Impala in as well. Okay, I'm going to head further along this road and keep searching the southern boundary, and we're going to send you back across to Tristan looking for something in the bushes.
Well, we are on the opposite side of where Lauren is. She's on the southern side, we're on the northern side, and we've got probably one of the most beautiful birds that we get to see out here, particularly because it stays all year round, so it provides a little bit of colour in the winter months when things go a little bit dry and look all quite dead. So I always like these guys being around, and this is of course a lilac-breasted roller that's having a bit of a stretch, and you can see those beautiful kind of colours, especially on the wings and the chest area. Absolutely beautiful, and often they do stretch like this. Today being so windy, I would imagine a lot of the birds are going to be perching like this. Flying is going to take an extraordinary amount of effort if they have to fly into the wind. And so you'll find that they fly a little bit, hunt, get what they need, and then land back on the trees and kind of rest a little bit and take it easy until such time as they've recuperated and have a little bit more energy again, and then you'll find they'll start flying off and doing their thing. But generally they're not so accommodating. They normally move away from you quite quickly, but this particular one is being super nice to us and is having a nice seat. I don't know if it's going to fly again. Now, I believe a lot of you are commenting on its beautiful colours. It does have very, very pretty colours. I like them. I unfortunately don't think they are the prettiest of the rollers. For me, the broad-billed roller is better looking. It's got a bright yellow beak and these kind of beautiful purples and blues on it that make it really, really pretty. Now, I'm not just driving through the bush. It might look that I'm not on a road, but this is an old track that used to go to an old hyena den. This den hasn't been used for I think it's about 3.5 years now since it was last used by the clan. But it's in place where often find other things lurking. So you can often find leopards in this area. It's a good place sometimes for ellies. Also warthogs. So I just wanted to come and check and see if anything's been moving around down here, because it doesn't look like anyone's been down here for quite some time. You can see by the road being overgrown. But this is the old hyena den on our left-hand side. You can see it's a beautiful mound, and it's actually such a nice spot, and it makes me wonder why they don't use it anymore. Maybe because this area is just so busy with other animals that the hyenas are a little bit wary of keeping their little ones here. But it's got shade, it's nice and big, it's got a good view. So you would expect this to be the kind of penthouse of this particular area and the high value property, but it doesn't seem to be the case. They seem to prefer further down, but nobody seems to be home. I don't see any warthogs or any sign of anything sitting here. I've always wanted to come here and find a leopard on this mound, but no. Nicole's 9 years old. Nicole, does the wind help to keep flies away from the animals? Not really, no. What you'll find is the flies are probably more irritating in the wind, and that's because they'll sit on the animals more. So they just kind of hunker down and just sit very, very still on the animals and crawl on the animals rather than fly from point to point on them. So they probably irritate them actually more on a windy day like today. But luckily for the animals, it's starting to go into winter, and what does affect the flies is cold. So the colder it is, the less flies you get. And we are starting to get cooler, and today is much cooler than it was yesterday. And so I'd imagine more than the wind, it's the temperature that will be giving them some relief from the flies. And I'm sure they'll be very happy about that. I certainly would be. I don't like flies very much. And so when it's cold and there's no flies, I'm quite happy. All right, we're going to carry on. We're going to go see what else we can find up on the northern side. And while we do that, we're going to send you all the way back to andBeyond in Ngala, which is much further north, and see how Eric's going on his search.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I just want to help direct Owen. We've just found such a beautiful bird. It's a Vervet eagle owl. So go up. You go, yeah, so it's in that tree. Now follow, stick left. If you go up and... Okay, I think you're a little bit too far up. Zoom out a little bit there, Owen. Zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. It's on the left-hand side of the tree that you're on one of the lower branches. So see that low branch at the bottom left of the screen? The horizontal one. Come in. Okay, now hook, go left. There we go, you see it. There we go. Okay, there we go. We've got it. I'll reverse back a slight little bit, just so we can see its face from... There we go. How's that? There we go. Look at that. I'm going to go back a little bit more. That is incredible. Now we've got the whole bird in view. Well found eventually, Owen. Sure. And the way that we found it, I don't know if you can hear the grey go-away bird making those alarm calls. And so there was that bird, and then a bird called a fork-tailed drongo, which was basically dive bombing this owl, and flew from one branch to the right of us to the left of us. That owl got disturbed quite a lot. It's such a beautiful owl, and just look at it. I mean, it's got those black markings on the edge of its face and those ear tufts. We'll see. I mean, it's got its eyes open for now. As soon as it closes and blinks, see if you can see the color of the eyelids. It's usually this beautiful bright pink color. It's got its eyes half closed there. I don't know if you just managed to see that quickly. Yeah, it is such a beautiful bird. And looking straight at us now. So these owls, I mean, this is a nocturnal species. We do get one or two that are active during the daytime. This owl, yeah, so Penelope, it was actually just what I was about to say, is it's a nocturnal species, so it only comes out in the middle of the nighttime to hunt. During the daytime, it rests, and it finds these trees to roost in, and to try and take the attention away from it, it needs to be that camouflage to blend in with its surroundings. So you'll find sometimes it will sit and it won't move for a few hours. And especially from a distance, the browns on the back and the slightly lighter color on the legs matches very, very well with the tree. It's walking now. Let's see if it's trying to find a slightly more comfortable roosting spot, or if it's going to fly. There, oh look! Did you see that? That was an African harrier, an African harrier hawk that was dive bombing it. So we've got two raptors in one field of view. That's amazing. Did you see the harrier hawk there? It's if you pan left to the next tree. Okay, so we'll show you that harrier hawk. Some people might know it as a gymnogy. There it is. So that is a diurnal species. Let me see if I can get, there we go. That is a diurnal species, and I've never really seen the two species interacting like that before. It's quite incredible. And I wouldn't imagine that they feel threatened by one another too much, but it's just potentially a little bit like, if lions and leopards see each other, they'll potentially compete. Same thing. Both predators of the sky, birds of prey. They probably don't like each other around each other's area. shame. That owl is probably just trying to get some rest, and it's getting dive bombed by grey go-away birds and fork-tailed drongos, and now an African harrier hawk is coming to. So, now we're definitely going to see them both in one spot. Some of the viewers are asking whether there'll be alarm calling rather at the African harrier hawk or the gymnogene rather than the owl, and I think it's probably a bit of both. I think that African harrier hawk has literally just flown into the scene, and it could have maybe been coming to respond to those alarm calls to see what might have caused them. Sometimes birds would alarm call at snakes, and this harrier hawk wouldn't mind going after and trying to eat a snake. So I think it probably was coming to investigate. It saw that owl and then it decided to chase it off. But I've never seen these two species so close to one another. It really is quite special. And that owl is just trying to mind its own business, and it's just getting bombarded by all sorts of different species. It's quite incredible. So Sophia and Fiona, you're asking how high these hawks and owls fly, and they don't really fly too high at all. You know, if they're wanting to get from one spot to another, they may fly maybe about 100 meters above the ground, but they tend to hunt things. So the African harrier hawk hunts things in trees, and so the most flying that you see it do is from tree to tree, and so it will fly from one tree to another, and so it might just keep the same height of 15-20 meters or so. And then this Verreaux's eagle owl will hunt things mostly on the ground, and so the way that it flies is it will sit in a spot like that and listen to noises at night time, and if it hears a noise it will swoop down that gymnogene or the African harrier hawk has just flown. And let's see what happens if that owl decides to go. But that owl will hunt scrub hares and genets and small little nocturnal mammals, and so it will fly from that perch down onto the ground, and then it might bring its catch up into the trees to feed on. And so they don't necessarily get very, very high. I think that the highest bird ever recorded in the sky was a bird called a vulture, and a griffin vulture specifically. And I might be mistaken, but I think it was seen somewhere close to 13,000 feet above the ground, which is absolutely unbelievable. Sure. Yeah, it's beautiful, and I thought I heard one calling another owl, but there's a notorious mimicker that we can hear in the background, and that's the fork-tailed drongo. I know, there is another one. I can hear the other one calling, but it's calling behind us somewhere. All right. Well, I think what we might end up doing... Oh, here we go. Here's the African harrier hawk is right here. I don't know if you'll be able to get it. Yeah, so we might try and see the other one if it's around for the next couple of minutes. But then ultimately, the plan for the afternoon is to head towards where that lioness and her two cubs have been seen recently. So we might only be here for the next few, and then we might end up leaving. But in the meantime, we'll send you across to Lauren. Can you see it?
Looking at a lot of warthogs. That was a lot of warthogs that just crossed the road. But you've never heard that joke before. Why did the warthogs cross the road? There must have been about 10, 11 of them. They're They're quite skittish. I'm just going to try and see if I can spot them again. I can see a waterbuck. Hello, Mr. Waterbucky. Did you scare those warthogs? Okay, BK, I think you should be able to work with this. You always find waterbucks around Chitwa, especially the males. Is this your territory? Mm-hmm. Lovely. Isn't that nose twitch just adorable? Now, a lot of people say that waterbucks smell terrible. And of course I believe them, but I've never experienced it myself until recently. I think it was Davy and I went past some waterbucks and the smell was horrendous, I must say. Really, really not nice. I'm not sure how I would even describe it. And this is an oily substance that the waterbuck actually secrete from glands in their skin. And it has a horrible stench. And this is said, well, there's different theories. So one theory is that it repels the predators. So they smell so bad that the predators won't eat them. The territorial bulls, like this one, he's a big bull, are more smellier than the others. So I think it's normally the bull that smells and the females not so much. And this theory was sort of debunked. You will still find predators eating waterbuck. I've seen wild dogs eat waterbuck. I've seen leopards. I've seen lions. So I really don't think the substance, as smelly as it is, really puts off any predators. You can actually smell it from up to 500 meters away. Can you believe it? It's said to protect the hair and the skin. Brooke, you're 6 years old and you're asking, do waterbuck like eating fruit? Not really, no. Waterbuck are grazers, and what that means is that they sort of graze and clip the grass. They're like lawnmowers. They love grass, all the nutritious and delicious palatable grasses. So their favorite grass is actually said to be Guinea grass, also known as buffalo grass, Panicum maximum, and spear grass. So they don't really spend much time eating fruit. I'm not entirely sure how this bull would feel if I offered him my grapefruit that I am currently snacking on this drive. It was the only thing I could find in the kitchen. So yes, they don't eat fruit, they eat grass. I wonder if we go forward, BK. You see that bum circle? Looks like he's been sitting on the toilet too long. But he's not, of course. This is a beautiful marking the waterbuck have as a follow me sign. Ellen, you're asking, are they good swimmers? Probably not, no, but most mammals can actually swim. They can make it through the water. So waterbucks have been found in the water, but it doesn't mean that they enjoy it. So I think they can swim. Absolutely. I'm going to go forward a bit, BK. But it's not something that they do. You normally find them in the water because they've ran into the water to escape predators. But humans and primates are actually the only mammals, really, that have to learn how to swim. All other mammals can just swim. It's not a skill they have to learn. Can you believe it? Aha, we've got another one. Hello, hello. But yes, they can swim. Most mammals can. And of course, fish can. Can you believe that? Sophia and Fiona, you are asking, are waterbucks related to impalas? Not really, no. They're both classified as antelopes, and they're both ungulates. So they come under the same grouping of animals, but they're not closely related, no. But they are both ungulates, and you will find them in the same category, if you like. Isn't that such a lovely bottom? I love it. I went up to the Masai Mara and they have a different subspecies of waterbuck over there. And I was just so devastated to find that that subspecies does not have the bum circle. They just have a normal bottom. No circle. So I'm going to head down to the dam now. We're not too far away, see what else we can find. But as I do that, we're going to send you back across to Tristan to see what he's up to.
Well, speak of the devil. It's amazing. We just found this waterbuck right now. So there's the circle that Lauren's talking about on the bum over there. And as she said, the ones in East Africa, in Kenya, well, they don't actually have that circle. They've just got a big solid white patch on their bottoms. And they are known as a Defasa waterbuck. So a little bit of a different species than what we see here, but this is a beautiful big male waterbuck, and well, he's now disappearing, of course. But as you can see, we've come to a big waterhole called Buffelshoek Dam, and well, not much going on at this stage. It's quite quiet, just very windy this side of the world. I did see a track for a female leopard coming towards this dam wall, and I was really hoping that we were going to find one sitting just taking it easy on the dam wall, but alas, no, there's no sign of a leopard at the dam at this stage. It's not to say there won't be one later in the day, but certainly can't see one at this stage. But amazing how full this dam is, considering that last year this time it was just a puddle. It was very, very small compared to what it is now. And I'm also amazed at how little water has been lost out of this dam. So the last time I was here was in February, and yes, there has been a bit of rain over the course of the last few months since I was last year, but it hasn't rained that much, but yet the dam itself is still very, very full. It seems as though it's not losing water too quickly, and that's probably because the temperatures have dropped quite a lot, so there's not nearly, as well as the shorter days means there's not nearly as much evaporation taking place, so, and therefore the water is, you know, holding on for a little bit longer. David, have you been seeing the hippos here?
We have.
Hudson is 5 years old. How large is Djuma? So Djuma is about 1,200 hectares or 2,400 acres. Just Djuma on its own, and then if you had to add Chitwa, it will go a little bit more than that. But I'm trying to think of a way to describe how big it is. Our waterbuck is still sitting here. I'm trying to think of a way to describe to you how big that would be. It's large is probably the best way to put it. So maybe if you've been to a big shopping mall, it would be bigger than a shopping mall. Maybe, in fact, 2 or 3 times the size of, 4 times actually, depending on which shopping mall you go to. But yes, that can be very, 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 very big. And so, I mean, this is only a very small section of the whole ecosystem. So even though we're down here in what's known as the Sabi Sands, where Eric is north of us, he's in a different game reserve called the Timavati. Well, on the edge of the Timavati, and that is all part of the same system. So the area is really, really big. It's bigger than some countries even, which is amazing. So we're just a little small part of a very, very big area. But so nice to see our waterbuck staying still. They also can be sometimes a little bit shy and go in behind thickets and kind of move away from you. But this particular male seems as though he's going to at least pose a little bit for you, which is good. You see his beautiful big horns, and off he goes. Right, well, on that note, our waterbuck has just left us, and that's also the end of our kids' session for the afternoon, so it's a warm welcome to all the adults that maybe are joining now. If you have just joined us, remember you can ask us questions, and you can do so using the hashtag WildEarth or at FC on the YouTube chat. I'm very sad, actually, before we go any further. Sorry, David, I was about to drive off, but then I've just kind of thought what I was going to talk about. I'm very sad about our tree. When did this happen, David?
A while ago.
Not very nice at all. Our beautiful big torchwood that used to grow here has broken and is now, well, looking very sorry for itself. And it was such a nice tree to kind of go and park under some days, particularly on a hot summer's day. And you could look out over the dam and watch what's going on, but it has now succumbed, and I don't know why. Maybe an ellie was involved, could have been struck by lightning, I'm not really sure. David, do you know what happened to it? Don't know. Should we go and investigate? Let's go and investigate. But I'm sad about it because it was such a beautiful tree, and it made such a nice kind of edging to this particular waterhole. You used to look across and see this big tree and there's birds and all kinds of things, so a bit sad about that. Okay, well, I'm going to go and investigate and see what's going on here. While I do that, I'm going to send you back up to andBeyond and Ngala, to Eric, and see how his investigation is going for that leopard.
Welcome back to andBeyond and Ngala. We decided to leave that owl. We couldn't see the second one, although it was calling. It was just calling in a very dense tree where we couldn't really see any of the branches properly because there were so many leaves. But still a really, really cool sighting. And what we decided to do from here is check a few of the water holes or the pans that still have water around the riverbed before we start making our way towards where that lioness and then 2 cubs have been in the last while. And just to see if we can see any fresher tracks or signs of her. We didn't really find anything fresh this morning, so hopefully we get to find some fresh tracks or maybe even her returning back towards the den site this afternoon. So I'm very excited. I mean, I've only seen them once. I'd love to get a really good view of them again this afternoon. But before I forget, Chantal from this morning, you asked an interesting question about animals and if they get diabetes or not. And I went back home after driving and read up about it. And by the sounds of things, it seems like it's only recorded in domestic and wild animals that are captured, so in zoos or in rehabilitation centers. So there's really been no recordings of diabetes out in the wild before, but it seems like it's most common in dogs and domestic dogs. And that's pretty much as I have read up. They said if an animal suffers from diabetes badly in the wild, it's not going to make it. It's going to get it will die off very quickly, or it will get caught by a predator who's fitter and stronger than it. So I hope that answers your question a little bit better than this morning. One of my favorite things about this time of year is just the change that we're experiencing, and it almost feels like you can see it on a daily basis. We're going from the lush greens of summer into the oranges of autumn. So a lot of the trees are starting to turn yellow, orange, red. See, like this one, for example, it's a tree called a tambuti. I want to show you the leaves quickly and just look at how beautiful the leaves are already. You look here. Look at that color. I mean, now we get such cool contrasts. You've got the typical green, and then it's not even the yellow or orange. It's gone straight to red. And so eventually this whole tree will be that bright red color. And then eventually the leaves fall off. It's really nice. Cool, let's keep going. So whilst we're driving slowly, checking for any signs of this lioness or anything else, we'll send you across to Lauren to see what she's up to.
Oh, there's a branch in the road. I'm going to move this branch, everybody. If you don't mind, these Impala are probably going to get a little bit startled. But we should not make new roads. That's one of the rules here. We shouldn't drive round things, because if cars keep driving round, it's going to create a new road. So I'm going to pretend that it's actually heavier than I thought it was. How elegant is this, huh? Okay, there we go. Now that's going to stop cars. Most likely have been an elephant. It's going to stop cars going round, being lazy and naughty and creating new roads. There we have it. That's my good deed for the day. I either stop and pick up trash or use my huge muscles to move trees. Okay, I am also looking for signs of cats. Oh, thank you, Emma. Emma's saying I'm an eco-warrior. Well, you know, somebody's got to move the trees. No, I'm joking. It really was not heavy. And as many of you know, my last day is the 18th for a while, and I'd just love to catch up with some of the cats. I feel I had my catch up with the Ingohumas, BK and I, not so long ago. But it's been a little while since I've seen any of the leopards, and I'd really, really love to see them before I go. So fingers crossed. But Tristan covering the north, I'm covering the south. And you can see already the clouds, heavy, grey, cold. So hopefully they'll be moving. Reuben, that's a very good question. So each predator, let's just take the 5 main predators that we get in this area. Lions, leopards, hyena, wild dog and cheetah. Okay, now they're all apex predators, which puts them right at the top of the ecosystem. They keep populations in check. They're carnivores, and the order Carnivora. They eat other animals, and it filters down all the way to vegetation level. Now, each predator has a unique specialization or unique adaptations that allow them to survive and thrive. So let's just say, for example, Reuben, all the predators were the same. So they were all the same size as a lion, they were all as strong as a lion, and nope, I'm imagining things, and they were all in big prides and groups like a lion. There would be far too much competition among them that they would not be able to all survive. So what happens is each of the predators need to find a unique niche. They need to all fit in. Imagine it like a big pizza. Are you hungry now, BK? Pizza. So imagine a big pizza, and they all need to have a piece that fits into the predator ginormous circular pizza. Now, if they're all the same, that pizza's not going to fit together, so they have to find a way that makes them all different, and that is adaptations. So for example, the cheetah hunts during the day to avoid clashing with leopards and lions, to avoid them, because the leopards and lions are stronger. So they've changed their whole schedule, and they're diurnal hunters. Also, they've got long legs, very thin bodies. They're very lightweight, small heads, small teeth. They're not classified as Panthera. They're not your big cat. They're actually classified as the lesser cats, but I hate that term. Well, look at the view. You are going to see the mast, but look at the sunlight just beaming through the clouds here. Isn't that beautiful? I'm just going to turn off. So cheetahs have evolved to be fast. They've evolved speed. They can outrun any lion, any leopard. So that's in turn caused so many different adaptations in the body, like I just mentioned. Hyenas hunt by coursing. They also rely heavily on scavenging. So hyenas have evolved along the lines of evolution to have a very unique body shape. It's very bizarre. Heavy at the front, strong at the front, long necks and weak back legs. And this is because they mainly scavenge, depending on where in the world you are. Leopards have evolved to be stealthy, sneaky. They've got rosettes, they've got great camouflage. Now, if leopards were all together in one group, they would be obvious, and they would have to compete with the lions. So they have completely different social dynamics, and their art of survival is to be on their own, rely on camouflage. And that's why it's actually really hard to spot leopards. We get lucky here, but in other parts of the world you don't see leopards because it's not easy. We are just very, very lucky our leopards are habituated, but they rely on the unique art of being camouflage. No one sees them, so they can sneak up on prey and then they can hide from other predators. So I hope that makes sense. Just think of the predator hierarchy as a big pizza. So it's round because they're all equal. I don't really like the word hierarchy either. And they all have a unique slice of different specializations, and that's what allows them to survive. If they were all the same, then they couldn't survive because there would be far too much competition. Competition in the natural world is natural, but it wouldn't allow for all these different species to survive. There you go. Okay, all this talks of predators makes me want to find one. So I'm going to quickly check the rest of Chitwa. And as I do that, I think Eric is also searching for his big cats.
slowly. That's how the search is going. And the reason being is I don't really want to miss any tracks whatsoever. So I'm spending lots of time looking down on the road, looking at pathways that might be coming onto the road, just so we can try and figure out where this lioness has gone to in the last 12 hours. We are moving through the area where a female leopard and her 2 cubs is sometimes seen as well. So, I mean, if we focused on those lakes, we miss a leopard. Still, that's a very good question. I think it's one that I think of a lot. We even have conversations, and I think it's changed. But if I were to be a predator, I think probably be leopard, and because I really enjoy the way that they move around. I mean, they can occur in so many different places. You can find leopards in the middle of cities sometimes. So I think one of the hardest predators to be would be a female cheetah, just because she's got so many things to look out for. I've seen warthogs chasing cheetahs, zebras, giraffe, wildebeest chasing cheetahs, so they've got a very, very tough time. And I guess, I mean, male lions also have a very, very stressful life. The way that they have to fight for their territories and protect and patrol, I think that's one of the reasons why their lifespan is so short. So if I had to choose, probably a leopard would be my final answer, I think. But out of any animal in the world, I think it would probably be a big eagle, like a martial or a crowned eagle. I think the idea of flying is really, really cool. I'd love to be able to circle these thermals and just overlook big, vast areas like this. The animal I'd least like to be, probably a warthog. Okay, so now we're going to send you across to Djuma, and the guides there will tell you what predators they would like to be.
Well, I'm not sure, Eric. We were just having a discussion about this now, David and I. We were saying leopard, but I mean, obviously for me a leopard would be probably the one that I would want to be, just because I think I would want to know what leopards do when we can't find them, and why they can be so sneaky sometimes. But David was saying to me he didn't want to be a leopard because it's lonely, and he likes to hang around with his friends and have a good time, and he says that leopard life is not for him. Yes, well, I know David would be lonely, everybody. But the problem with the leopard, or any of the cats, is that it's a short-lived life, and it's not an easy one. So I think if you want to go for like ease of life, I was saying to David, I think the easiest, if you get past a certain point, would be a crocodile. Because if you're a big crocodile, you just sit in the sun, bask a little bit, eat some stuff, swim around, no one really bothers you. You know, life is pretty good. So I think if you wanted to be like chilled life, big crocodile. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I would want to be a leopard just because I think it would be cool to know what they do and what they think and how they think, and it must be cool to have those senses to be able to hear and smell and those kinds of things, and where they are exactly, Emma. But what else would I mean, I liked Eric's idea of one of the birds of prey. I think that would be super cool. Imagine being like a peregrine falcon and being able to do those speeds. Must be unbelievable. And obviously crowned and martial eagles have the bulk and size and the ability to pull down very large animals, but relative to their body size. So I think flying would be really, really cool. Yeah. And there's obviously the ocean predators. David, would you ever be a shark? You would love to be a shark. Which kind of shark?
Great white?
Great white. You would want to be a great white, the big bad one.
Big bad one.
I think I would like to be a tiger shark. I like tiger sharks. Very, very, very cool looking animals. I'm just thinking. got to go through all the predator lists. Definitely one thing I wouldn't be is a snake. I don't think I'd be a schnooky. Would you be a schnooky? No. Nah, I didn't think so. All right, well, while we contemplate what else we could possibly be, let's send you across to Lauren and see what she would like to be if she was a predator.
Oh, such an interesting topic. I don't imagine Tristan as a snake, though. I don't think he would be a very good snake. And Davy, interesting answer, wanting to be with these friends, huh? His friends. I would be a wild dog. You always have your pack. The life of the wild dog is about the pack. The pack is about the dogs. If you're sick, they'll look after you. If you're weak, they'll bring you food. They'll protect you. They'll guard you. You raise the pups together. You're never alone. You hunt together. You probably don't get much personal space, to be honest, but I would be a dog. You've always got that pack to rely on. And there was actually a wild dog, I can't remember which country in Africa, it slipped my mind, that broke 2 of his front legs. And it was able to survive because the pack looked after it. It was able to move somehow. I'm not entirely sure how. And they just kept bringing food back for it. And it survived a really long time. And it's probably the only predator that would survive like that because they had the pack. I would definitely be a wild dog. But Davy would not be in my pack. BK, over to you. Oh, why does that not surprise me? BK would be a honey badger. He is obsessed with honey badgers and they're predators, I guess. Not the usual suspects, but they're BK's favorite animal. And he gets very, very excited anytime anything to do with honey badgers comes up. So that's our choice. He just thinks they're really cool. Emma, what would you be? What predator would you be, Emma? She's thinking. I can hear the thoughts. Oh! Emma wants to be a snow leopard. I like your thinking, Emma. Very impressive. But then she said she would be more like a bad-eared fox. Both are cute, Em, both are cute. But yes, it's such a great topic. The predators are all so different. And if they're part of the order Carnivora, it's so vast. It covers such a great number or diverse range of species. And they all hunt in such different ways. Okay, here's a question for you all. I have asked this before. Maybe I should just stick to the kiddies answering this one. What is the world's largest carnivore? Yes. Tell me, send in your answers. The largest carnivore. What animal is it? Now, carnivora, comes from Latin, flesh devourers. So that's where you get the order carnivora from. And the English language have taken that word and we call them carnivores. But what it means is eating flesh. So it's animals that eat other animals. And there's different levels of being a carnivore. You can be a hyper carnivore right at the top when you eat above 70% meat, like your lions and your leopards and your wild dogs. You also get mesocarnivores, which are carnivores that eat somewhere between 50 to 70% meat. They'll also mix it up, possibly with fruit or seeds or vegetation. And then you get carnivores, hypocarnivores, and they're the ones that eat less than 50% meat. So they do eat meat, but they're more like omnivores. So there's different classifications. Oh, Emma has told me what Google said, and it's wrong, Emma. Oh, I've never said that before. Google is wrong. I know. What is the answer, people? Tell me. We don't have to do it right now. Put your thinking caps on and clearly don't rely on Google. Now, the clue is in the phraseology that I used. The world's largest carnivore. Okay, I very much look forward to hearing all your suggestions. And as I wait patiently, we are going to send you back across to Eric with a surprise.
We've just come down into the riverbed where we've been seeing this lioness for a while, and we found this beautiful female lying in the sun. She's got her head up and she's looking, and just look at her face for a little while. So she doesn't have any scarring around her nose, but then look at the color of its nose. It's pretty much almost black. So the interesting thing about this is that this isn't the female that's got the cubs at the moment. This is basically the auntie of the female. And she's just put her head down. And another way, if you look at the belly there, there's absolutely no sign of her having suckled. So there's no wet nipples and there's no lactating mammary gland. So there's nothing swollen around there. So this is very interesting. I mean, I was expecting to come and see that lioness with the cubs. Instead, we've seen her auntie. But she is probably about 100 meters away from where the other female has been keeping her cubs. We haven't really got there. We just stopped in the riverbed and managed to see her. So we found a lion. It's not the lions that we were hoping to see yet, but you never know. And, you know, the good thing is, whoopsie, my head gets in the way a lot, I've started to notice. But, I mean, the good thing is, thank you so much, Lynn. I always love it when a plan comes together. And the interesting thing is, you know, she's found her way here, and she seems to be all by herself. The last time these lions were seen were with Sean, actually, and that was 3 days ago now. And they were seen together as a group of 3 adult females. And they were separated probably by a few kilometers away from the rest of the pride. And so those 3 might have tried to find the pride again, and maybe they split up to go and hunting, and they lost each other. And so she might have just been walking down this river, maybe calling every now and again, and she could have heard the response of that younger female. She could have even picked up the scent. And it's interesting how she's not with them, but quite far away. Shavadia, you're absolutely correct. Lions will sleep mostly throughout the day and a lot into the night as well. I mean, we think of these lions as nocturnal, so a lot of the time we picture them to be active the whole night. But in actual fact, they spend a lot of the time sleeping and resting during the night time. They don't walk for 12 hours at a time. You know, they might be active for about 4 or 5 hours generally each day. And one of the reasons why they tend to be a lot more active at nighttime is it's much cooler, so it's easier for them to retain energy. They don't have to spend their energy cooling themselves down. And then it's also a lot easier to go unnoticed. So if they're looking for something to hunt, they can get much closer than they would be able to during the daytime. And see, this lion now is completely fast asleep. It's just enjoying the last bit of the afternoon sun. And so, I mean, it's just probably waiting for that opportunity to get active. Okay, so, I mean, we're going to stick around here. I'd love to see if we can find that younger female, the one with the cubs. So we'll spend a bit of time driving around this area. But in the meantime, we'll send you back to Djuma with Lauren.
Very special for you. I'm trying not to scare them. There's more than one. Hold on. I'm going to drive very carefully. This is really exciting. I haven't seen this in a long time here in Djuma. Okay, BK, I might need your help here. Did you see where they went? This way. We have some ground hornbills for you, everyone, which is really exciting. I've not seen them in a really, really long time on Djuma. You can hear them. It's really tricky to see them. We had the most perfect views for you. No, where have you gone? Oh, they have to be here somewhere. They're big, big birds. They cannot completely disappear from us. Ah, here we go. Yes, I'm just going to get into position, BK. Hold on. give you better views, we're just going to go as close as we can without scaring this individual. Yes, we've got a ground hornbill. So exciting. Okay, BK, do your thing. Huge birds, look at that. Aren't they gorgeous? Now, ground hornbills are really, really endangered. And the main reason for this is that the breeding is really, really irregular. So they don't breed regularly, and there's a theory that it's actually linked to rainfall. So their breeding season is really dependent on an environmental cue or an environmental factor. So therefore it's not stable, if you like. And they are said to produce a chick, once every 6 years, and therefore for that reason they're quite endangered. Now, I don't actually know what the IUCN classification is. If you go onto IUCNredlist.org, this is the official website for the classification of endangerment of species all across the world, but it bases it on global populations, not local populations. And I'm just going to check this right now because I don't know what the proper classification is. There's a northern ground hornbill and there's a southern ground hornbill. Yes, it's vulnerable. That is right. I've just got it in front of me now. It's vulnerable. The list goes from least concern all the way up to critically endangered. So there's different categories: least concern, near threatened, vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, and extinct. So ground hornbills are said to be vulnerable, and that's one of the main reasons, due to the fact that they only have a chick once every 6 years. Shirani, you're asking how large are they actually? I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have to check my bird app for that, of the dimensions and weight. Let's see what my wonderful bird app says. Southern ground hornbill. Now it says that they can reach over 1 meter tall. The males are bigger than females. They differ slightly in the coloration, I'll show you that in just a moment. And they can weigh up to 4 kilograms. So they're big birds, especially in comparison to their yellow-billed and red-billed counterparts. And once we do lose visual, I will show you how to tell the difference between the sexes. Right, okay, Beaky, let's see if we can get a little bit closer again. How exciting! Okay, I'm just going to navigate through here. Faith, you're saying is the largest carnivore in the world a T-Rex? Oh my goodness, you've thrown quite an answer into the mix here, because possibly at one point in time it could have been. I should have maybe reworded my question better, but that's not the answer I'm looking for, I'm afraid. But I love it. Thank you for that contribution. Any other suggestions to the largest carnivore in the world? Emma, can I just check you're still there? It's gone eerily silent in my ear, and I do wonder if we have lost comms. Can you hear anything, BK? Oh, yes, I can, okay. Sometimes in Chitwa you go through patches of not... Can you hear it? calling. Oh, I must say the wind is too bad. It's calling. They've got quite an iconic call. It's a loud hoo hoo hoo, hoo hoo hoo, hoo 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 hoo. And it's said to carry over 4 kilometers. It's loud. That's why when you hear them calling, you can't always guarantee you're going to find the bird. So apparently it's International Dinosaur Day today. Happy International Day, dinosaurs. Very happy for you all. Nice one, PK. Well done. That was fantastic. We don't have the best views now, but there's another one. We're going to move. So yes, they don't actually reach sexual maturity, these birds, until 6 years old. So they've got a long time to wait until they're able to produce offspring. That's the main sort of factor in their low population levels. So any other suggestions of the carnivore, Emma, before I tell everyone? Ixie, you're saying elephant seals. Aha. I like where you're thinking. You're definitely going along the right lines. It's not the right answer, but I like it. Well done. We've got 2. We've got 1 here and 1 here. I don't know which one's the best one to show, BK. Linda, you're saying giant squid. Ooh, I also like that one. Very impressive, but it's not the answer I am looking for, I'm afraid. Alice White, well done. It is the blue whale. The blue whale is, of course, a mammal, and it's the world's largest carnivore. 30 meters long, 90 feet, and around 200 tons. So it's the largest carnivore in the world. But yes, the largest on land would be the polar bear, which is what Emma said. Of course, polar bears come in anywhere between 800 to 1,300 pounds. So they're also very, very large. Well done, BK. I wonder if you all know what the smallest carnivore is. The world's smallest carnivore. Without using Google, which is not reliable. But do any of you know? Oh, magnificent. This is such a wonderful sighting. Please don't fly away again. We are really enjoying spending time with you. Now, I will tell you, the world's smallest carnivore is the least weasel, coming in at a length of 16 inches and almost 200 grams. That's the world's smallest carnivore. And carnivores sit at the 3rd level in the Karen, you would have said mosquitoes. I like where you're going with that. That's very impressive. Very impressive thought. Apparently not. And of course, they don't kill another animal. They don't devour flesh. But yes, Karen, I think you have a very valid point there. So yes, carnivores sit at the 3rd level, 3rd trophic level in an ecosystem. So that's right at the top. The 3rd level is your highest level, and that's where they sit. And this is to keep other animals in check. Carnivores are designed to keep other animals in check. So if a carnivore population is wiped out by disease, or even natural disasters actually, or of course humans, which is happening, then that will create a complete imbalance in the ecosystem, and you will experience an overpopulation of all the other organisms that are lower in the food chain, i.e. the 2nd or the 1st trophic level, and it would be very, very problematic. And a great example of this is the wolves. So I read a fantastic book on wolves. It was so interesting. They were actually reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park in the USA after being eradicated about, I think it was 70 years earlier. And the reason they were reintroduced, they were eradicated originally because people were scared of them. They thought they were vermin, they thought they were dangerous, so they were wiped out. But then they were reintroduced because they needed to help control the elk populations in order to help the woody plant species recover. and that's the food chain right there. So because there was no predator, the elk populations were booming, out of control, and therefore they were destroying all the plants, all the vegetation, including the woody plant species. And therefore they needed to bring the wolves back in order to control those populations. Ah, fantastic. Okay, here we go, everyone. We have the male. I'm just going to quickly go over this. And the male is all red. You see that? Let's zoom in here, Beaks. A little bit closer to the male. There we go. Completely red all over. Now, if we just move across to the female, she's also red, but do you see this very, very small blue patch on her chin? It's very small, but it's blue. That's how you tell the difference between male and female. And if you just look at the immature, juvenile version, it's yellow in the face. So it's actually quite easy to tell the difference between sexes and ages within the ground hornbills. Oh, what a fantastic sighting. I have to say I am really, really happy with that. It's made my day. So as I finally decide what I'm going to do now, we are going to send you back across to Tristan and see what he's up to.
Well, not very much at this stage, Lauren. We have failed to find any sort of sign of anything, really, in the northeast corner. No real tracks to work with. It feels eerily quiet on this side of the reserve. I was just saying to David now, it's a kind of afternoon where it's quiet but feels like something could happen. I just don't know what right now. And so we're just kind of taking it very, very slow. I checked cheetah cutline a little bit just in case Tundi was out on the prowl this evening. Not so much for the cubs, but just to see if maybe, just maybe, she was walking around and going for a hunting session or a scent mark or something like that. But alas, no sign of her crossing anywhere onto Djuma, unfortunately. So she must still be on the Torchwood side. I spoke to some of the guys that were on Torchwood this morning. They said they couldn't find a single track for her anywhere. So I don't know if she maybe has got a kill somewhere or if she's just kind of holed up and taking it easy. Ed, I was also hoping that we would get Tlalamba, but at this stage, not. I'm pretty sure the tracks we had this morning is her tracks. So I think she's not far from camp at the moment, or at least was this morning, during the early hours of late hours of last night, early hours of this morning. So I think she's around. It's just a matter of finding her. As we know, she can be pretty elusive when she wants to be. She's one of those cats that you got to kind of time it absolutely right and have quite a lot of luck on your side to find her. As it starts to get towards winter, it's going to be easier because the water is going to be less. At the moment, there's still a few little mud wallows here and there that have got water in them, which allows for the likes of Tlalamba and Tundi to a degree to drink in places that are not easy to find. So once those dry out, then it starts to suck them into areas that are easier to see them, so like the Dam Cam or Gallagher Pan, the bigger water holes where there's roads that are there and you can kind of pick up their tracks quite easily. When there's water in these blocks, they just have to walk around in there and they can find what they're looking for, so it can make it a little bit tricky. So, hopefully we'll find her. I'm actually heading back in that direction now. I was just doing a slow loop in case the lions maybe had come back towards Djuma, but they haven't. And so I'm going to head back towards where we had leopard tracks this morning. In the meantime, though, let's send you up to Eric, who's still with his lion, and hopefully his lion's going to be fairly active in this cool afternoon.
We decided to loop around more towards where we know that lioness was denning, and we managed to find this lioness. We haven't had a good view of her yet. She's been sleeping, but we are almost 100% sure that it's that same female that's been denning in this area. And it's quite a far-off shot. I'm sure both Nikki, Rowan and Sean have been explaining that we won't get any closer. We don't want to put any pressure on her whatsoever. So it is a little bit of a wider view for now. She looks like she's really fast asleep. We haven't really had any view of the cubs yet. But if she's lying there and sleeping so peacefully, the best place to look would be towards the back end of her body, because the cubs could be drinking and unfortunately there's just a little bit too much sand, but you might see those two little black spots of those ears behind the back of the ears if they happen to be drinking. Once they've finished and they've got their mouth full, you never know, they could get up and maybe start moving back towards the mother's face for a grooming session. They could even come out and come and have a look to see what big funny animal we are on the sandbank. So we're not going to go anywhere. We don't want to interrupt them or do anything, so we're just sitting in this exact same spot and hopefully find a view of the cubs for everyone. I'm super excited. I'd love to see what they're up to and what they're looking like. I'm sure they've grown so much in the last 2 weeks since I saw the one. Oh, Anushka, for me, what I love most about the bush is being able to be in these big, vast, open spaces with little people around us. To be able to be in an area that is the size of a small country and know that you're only a few hundred people in it is something that's very enthralling to me. I really enjoy not seeing lots of people. Not that I'm antisocial, I just don't really like the congestion of a city. So I really enjoy these big open spaces. I love the animals that we find in this area. I love the scenery. There's a lot of things for me, but those big open spaces for me is for me what really gets me going in this area. So we're just going to scan across, and I mean, we did see that one lioness a little bit earlier, just to kind of give you a point of reference where she is. A bit more right there, to the right of the log. There she is, lying down. So that's her, and that's essentially the auntie of the female that we have on the right hand side of the den site. And it's a bit unusual that you see this lioness away from the pride, but it happens from time to time. Karen, yes, they will suckle on other mothers. It happens a lot of the time. Sometimes a female won't really allow it, but it just depends on the individual. And I know this pride in particular, when they first started coming into the reserve in around 2011, there was a female that died of tuberculosis, and she had young cubs of about 4 or 5 months old. And the rest of the pride completely adopted the cubs, and they allowed them to suckle. I mean, even from here, we've seen the 3 lionesses. They gave birth pretty much within the space of 2 or 3 months of one another. And it's very difficult to try and figure out which lion has given birth to which cubs, because they share the load so much. And it's probably one of the reasons why lions like to keep their cubs hidden and away from the pride for such a long time. Because if she were to introduce these young cubs into the pride at such an early age, there's absolutely no way they can outcompete the older cubs. And those older cubs, or now technically sub-adults, I guess, would see the opportunity to drink, and they'll go straight for it. And sometimes the lionesses will tolerate it, and that will just mean that the younger cubs will get pushed away, and they won't get sufficient nutrients in their bodies. And so this just ensures that they get to grow and get a little bit more confident, and hopefully, they'll be able to get nice and big and strong before they get introduced to the rest of the pride. Jacob, we actually haven't, and let me just quickly get my map for you, just to show you and maybe just give you an idea of where we are and where the lines have been. So, here. Owen's just going to zoom in. How's that? All good. So we, Owen, are here at the moment. We are hanging around this area. This is where that lioness is denning at the moment. This is where that other lioness was. For the majority of the last month, the pride has been hanging around the eastern part of the reserve. And so they've spent lots and lots of time in the east. They've now, over the course of 2 days, they walked basically straight across here, and then they've just gone straight down into this area over here. And this area is very, very tricky to track lions. And for a number of reasons. It's super rocky, so it's lots of granite rocks within the area. There's lots and lots of grass, very tall grass. And what makes it quite challenging is there's a very little road network that goes through here. So this area here is probably about maybe close to 3,000 hectares. So it's literally a size of a small game reserve without a single road going through it. And so these lions have crossed into there, and we haven't seen them coming out again. So there's hopefully a chance that I think they've gone south, and hopefully they're going to start moving back north. They tend to, from this point, they tend to start coming back up in this direction. So hopefully in the next couple of days, maybe Rowan, Sean, or Nikki, maybe me in 4 days' time will be able to show you the rest of the pride. Now, whilst we wait for this lioness to move around and hopefully reveal her cubs, we'll send you back to Djuma, and Lauren has got a nice big animal for you to look at.
I have found an elephant walking across the great dramatic skies and, well, behind the bushes. Which means we have to reposition. It's a hare, that's a female, big swollen mammary glands. So she's obviously a mother. I imagine her youngster will really, really not be far away. Let's see if we can catch up with the rest of the herd. Now, I totally forgot to mention this morning, but Eric, talking of lions, we did receive news, good news, that the young Nkahuma male has been, well, sighted with the Styx pride, which is very, very interesting. Let me just get into a nice position. I think the elephants have been a little bit agitated today. Ah, there's a youngster. With all the wind, and then I will explain. BK, can you work with that? I just want to give elephants lots of room. Styx pride, where the pride was a dominant coalition here once upon a time. And I always say this, but they did up Styx and leave, and that's when the Nkahumas came in. And the young Nkahuma male is now with the Styx pride, which is really, really interesting because it includes relatives of his. I think 2 half-sisters, stroke cousins, and half-brothers and cousin, I believe. And this is through the Birmingham males. So I believe they're in the western sector of the Sabi Sands. And that would be interesting to see if he sticks with them. Yeah, these dogs are really bad. And if they form a coalition. We were a little bit worried about the Nkahuma male at one point. And yeah, he may form a coalition with the boys down there. And that will be the Nkahuma and Styx coalition. That would be very interesting. Because the Styx moved out, the Nkahumas came in. And they've got relatives, not close relatives, but there's a connection there through the Birmingham Males Coalition. I forgot to update you on that this morning. I'm so sorry. I'm sure many of you know it's on social media. Michael Fleetwood was so kind to send me that message. And I'm not very good with some social medias.
Leaving these Ngala, open lock, and flat kit.
I'm not sure if you heard that update. Leaving the Ngala, lions, and flat cat. That was the update, everyone. I'm glad we're now updated. But yes, that's great news for the Nkahuma male. I really do think they will form a coalition. And although we are looking at an elephant's bottom, I just thought I would update you on the lion dynamics. If he forms a coalition, that will be very, very good for him. He needs that. He needs that to survive. Yeah, Georgia. The elephant doesn't seem too fazed by the news. I know. Not loving it, huh? Not very excited about the future of the Nkahuma male. I have to agree with you on that one. I don't want to get too close to them just because of the weather conditions. We can maybe get a little bit closer, BK, but I'm going to be really, really cautious today. The weather is not on our side. Zephyr, you're saying that news warms your heart. I'm glad to hear it. Everybody wants a warm heart. It warmed mine too when Michael sent me that message. The Nkahuma male deserves a good coalition. He's ready to take on the world, but in order to do that, he needs coalition mates. And hopefully we can keep up with him. Hopefully we can get his news and possibly even see him in the future. Wow, we've got lots of elephants here. This is going to be the best view we can work with. And of course, talking about the future, you hear us say it all the time, but you are welcome to support us if you do wish to do that. You can head over to wildearth.tv/support, and there's various options there for you to support us in any way that you can. Now, I mentioned this recently, but statistics, and of course there's always the outliers. As a scientist, you're taught you have a body of data, and there's always outliers, but statistics say that small coalitions, partnerships with non-relatives, now the Nkahuma one's going to be interesting because there is a relation there, but non-relatives never really grow much larger than 3. 3 is a number, the perfect number for non-related males, because although they're a coalition and they work together, there's also competition. You want it to be your sperm that's passed on, your genes. You don't really want it to be your non-related coalition mate. So although they need each other, there's also competition there. Whereas coalitions of anywhere between 4 to 9, they're always said to be composed of close relatives, brothers, cousins, second cousins, etc. So I think this will really, really benefit the Nkahuma male if he does form a coalition. It's not a coalition yet, but if he does form it, it's going to really, really benefit him. You've got to preserve your own genetics. If you have a coalition with non-related males, that's going to be really difficult to do that. It's all about your genetics and passing them on. You want to be the one to father the offspring at the end of the day. Elephants are actually very relaxed. We heard some trumpeting earlier on, so somebody was upset. But these elephants appear to be very, very relaxed. Okay, I may leave these elephants because they're going deeper into the block and bumble, see what else I can find. And as I do that, we're going to bumble you guys across to Tristan.
Well, we did just have a brief view of a puff adder, so I'm just trying to see if I can see it. It went kind of off the road on the left here, but unfortunately I think it got a bit of a fright with the car coming towards it. They actually can move quite fast when they really want to. I don't want to go too close because obviously you don't want it to get too much of a fright, so I'm just going to try and see if I can see it. It went in towards this tree. There it is. You see it moving, David? It's going over the tree. They're so camouflaged. Go a little bit further towards the base of the tree. And then somewhere... There it is, yeah. There it is. There's the scales in between the grass. So in there is a puff adder that's busy moving through. You can see the beautiful kind of coloration that they've got and the camouflage. And there goes the tail. A very stumpy tail that they have. Now, I was saying in the last few days, I've been seeing so many snake tracks. I suspect that they're preparing themselves for the winter to go into a state of estivation, and you can see how easy it is for people to stand on puff adders, and why they hit so many people in Africa is because of how camouflaged they are. I mean, you wouldn't know there's a snake in there until such time as you walked right there. So, got to be very, very careful with them, and watch where you're putting your feet at this time of the year. It's typical to see them at this time of the year. They come out a lot in these kind of autumn periods, just before they start to estivate and hunker down for the winter. Madash, exactly, it is a nice puffy. I know the guys up at Ngala had one the other day. That was a lot easier to see, but nice at least that we got a bit of a view of a puff adder. And well done, Davy. Not easy to get that on camera in amongst all of that. So you did good. Something odd about this marula tree on our right, Davy. But I can't get a clear view. I think it's just a branch. It's difficult because it's silhouetted. You see there, Davy? There's like a thickened area I think it's just a branch. This one's caught me before, I think. You see that one at the back there at like 3 o'clock, but far back.
No, it's just behind here.
Behind there. I'll try and go back a little bit, but it's caught me before. It's just a branch, but sometimes when you're driving along, especially when there's like silhouettes, anything that looks a little bit out of the ordinary is worth just double checking. I'm trying to find a gap here. We got it there. David, no, they don't have rattles, but their name, puff adder, so it's that tree in the background. There's like a little thickening on the left side. It's behind some of those bushes. That looks a little bit leopard-like. But the reason why they're called puff adders is because when they're upset, rather than rattling, they puff themselves up and then hiss at you, and they make this loud rasping sound if they feel like they're being threatened or if you've stood too close to them. And so that's where the sort of puff adder name has come from. They kind of inflate themselves and then kind of make this really nasty hissing sound to ward you off. Is there any water in these pans? There's a little bit. This used to be one of Columba's favorite little spots at one point. She used to sit here often at this particular water hole that was on our left-hand side. She used to use this mound here and sit on top there, or she'd go in behind the trees. And it's a good place for a leopard to be. It's quite thick and dense here, so I always like to drive slowly when we go past this section in case she's sitting back there again. Okay, well, we're going to carry on and see where these buffalo have gone. I haven't found them yet, and I haven't found any tracks either, so while I look for them, let's send you back up to Eric and see if those little cubbies have come out yet.
We are indeed still with these lions. I believe you just had a really nice view of the puff adder, which is cool. Nice to see them during this time of year. Not much has changed here yet. We reversed slightly so we could see a little bit more of the belly of her, so we can't see her face as well, but at least we can see that belly. So if the cubs decide to go for a drink, or if they try and fight over a nipple, we might see some movement. So we positioned ourselves here nicely. That lioness, who's another 100 meters away or so, is still sleeping, but she every now and again would pick up her head and look back in this direction. And so I think, she must have met the cubs sometime today, but that the mother will be quite protective over her cubs. So she'll probably just growl and snarl and give her some pretty clear signs that she doesn't want her too close. So yeah, we're just waiting. We're not going anywhere. We're just hoping that there's something or special will reveal itself. One's got its head up again there. Rosalind, you're asking how many lions would take down a buffalo, and it's probably, you can give an average. She's got her head up. Let's see what happens. This might be it. She's responded to a noise. So Rosalind, I would say these two probably wouldn't have the strength and the skill to take down the buffalo by themselves. This one that in view is still a very young hunter, so she's all this lioness needs to do now is get up and call her cubs out into the open riverbed, and we'll have such a wonderful view. But yeah, Rosalind, like I was saying, these two lionesses probably don't or wouldn't go after a buffalo by themselves, but this pride has been known to catch buffaloes within the last couple of months. And so in total, with this young female included, there's 5 females, and those 5 females will be confident enough to try and go after a buffalo. In fact, I think it was 4 days ago, 4 or 5, yeah, somewhere around there, we were looking for these buffaloes, and Rowan and Sean were out tracking the pride of lions, and they actually heard these lions going after 2 buffalo bulls. They were unsuccessful, which happens a lot with lions hunting buffaloes. But yeah, these 2 definitely wouldn't try it themselves. The rest of the pride would. So the father of these cubs, not so long ago, pretty much in the same spot that we're in, managed to take down a buffalo bull all by himself. And it was like a fight to the death, lasted over 6 or 7 hours. Now, Christella, you asking if a male lion would join them, what it would do with the cubs? It depends if it's their father, and there she goes down. But maybe the cubs will readjust and we might see the face. But Christella, if it's the father, he wouldn't. And he would know that he's mated with the female and would know that it's their cubs. If it's an unrelated male who's coming to try and take over new territory, and they happen to stumble across this lioness with her cubs, then they definitely would kill the cubs for sure. And the reason being, he is not invested, or he's not wanting to invest all of his time and effort in looking after somebody else's offspring. He would much rather kill their offspring, get the female to mate as soon as she could, and then put that effort into raising his own cubs. And as it stands, I mean, this lioness will only be ready to mate probably within the next 2.5, maybe even closer to 3 years. And so that's a long time to wait. And there's a good chance that he could have taken over the pride, chased the dominant males off, and in 2 years' time, he could possibly have got chased off himself. So he wants to get his genes into the pride as quickly and effectively as possible. The easiest way to do that is to kill the cubs. And the females will be very, very protective over them, and she will just try, if the cubs are old enough to move around, she'll just constantly move, and if those lions are calling in the distance, they'll literally turn directly opposite. I lost it. Where? Okay. Yeah, so we're going to wait. I mean, we got that very, very brief view of the cub. That lioness picked up her head, which might be a good sign for us. So we'll just sit around, and we've got another an hour and a half or so to wait. So whilst we do that, we'll send you across to Lauren to see what she's up to.
Well, I don't have a view of a lioness, but BK and I have the most beautiful view of the sky. Look at that. Breathtaking. And it's interesting that Eric's talking about infanticide, because it's actually now very well established that a wide variety of mammals, well, male mammals, when they recently enter a new social group or an area, they will frequently kill the offspring of the resident females. It's actually more common than we realize. Lions just have a very bad reputation for it. But this infanticidal behavior actually accelerates the onset of estrus in females. So it's not entirely to get rid of the cubs, really. It's a method of bringing those females back into estrus so those males can mate with them quickly and then have their own offspring, if that makes sense. And in African lions, the cub mortality rate that is due to infanticide by incoming males is 27%. So a quarter, basically, of all cub mortality. A quarter is attributed to the, well, infanticide by incoming males. Females can also commit infanticide, which is very interesting. But they can. And it's called filial infanticide. That's the general term for when a parent kills an offspring in the animal kingdom. And we would use this term for when, let's just use lions, when a mother maybe deliberately abandons her litter, when only one cub remains, or if there's a weak cub, abandonment. I've also seen examples where mothers kill their own cubs. It's very, very sad. It is possible. It's not just to males. It's definitely not as common, and there's not a sort of biological reason behind it. Although maybe there is, because it's been determined that females increase their lifetime reproductive success overall by abandoning single cubs. So therefore they're able to invest in larger litters. So if there's a single cub that's struggling or disabled or weak or not able to keep up with the rest of them, if that female abandons that cub, overall it contributes to the lifetime reproductive success. So I guess, yes, there is a biological reason after all. And it's very, very sad to think of female lions committing infanticide, but we think of it from a very human perspective, I guess, in our human minds, and it is all about your success and the success of your bloodline. So if it's more beneficial for a female to abandon a cub, like we witnessed with white muscle disease, and I think it was really, really struggling in the dam, and the mother couldn't get the cub to walk. It was too weak. It was very sad. So abandonment is really the only way to go, I'm afraid. And we do term this filial infanticide. So it's not just the males, but of course male lions have a terrible reputation for it. They really do. But there is an innate biological drive that's telling them to do that. And it's not just wipe out all the cubs, get rid of them. It is really to bring the females back into estrus. And of course to get rid of other males' offspring, yes, but that's not the sole factor behind them doing it. It's to get rid of offspring that are not their own. They want the females back into estrus to then mate and then have their own offspring, if that makes sense. Manette, you said it was interesting but sad to see it in the Masai Mara. Not entirely sure which sighting you're referring to. There was many sad sightings, but yes, I witnessed a few hard moments as well. And the clash that Patrick had, I'm sure some of you will remember it, between the two prides and the Kichwa males, that was very, very sad. But that was more a territorial clash where the cubs died as a result of that. That wasn't really infanticide. The males didn't have a hand in that, but that was very sad. And then to watch a lioness eat that cub, it's hard. It's also hard to be the person in the car having to narrate that. But it's nature, and nature is nature, and humans must not intervene as much as we can. Really, we always must try to just be mere observers. So yes, maybe that was a bit of a bleak topic. So in order to cheer you all back up, I think we should send you back across to Eric with his cute lions.
Welcome back. There we go. We've literally, we just see the cub. Look at the movement there. This literally just happened as we went live. Look at those little black ears. It looks like it's trying to move around and adjust its position on the mom's nipple there. That is probably the best timing that we've ever had. That was seriously cool. You can just see those little black dots. I've seen it before that they'll fall asleep on the teat, and so it might be something that they've been doing the whole afternoon. And you never know, if it's up and stirring around, maybe it will get a little bit more active for us. That was such cool timing. And now, I mean, it's very still, and oh, you can just see the little black ear. We'll zoom back and have a look to see what that other lioness is up to. She's still not moving too much. She every now and again picks up her head and looks to see what's going on closer to us. Nothing's really inspired her to move too much. Hey? Zephyr is saying the milk bar is open. Yes, it is for sure. I'm sure these cubs, after they've had a good feed, there's an Impala walking straight past that lioness. It doesn't know that the lioness is there yet. A little bit more on the, yeah, there we go. See the movement? Sure. I think it looks a bit closer than what it actually is because we're quite far away. But I mean, it doesn't even look like the lioness has gotten up and reacted to it. And that impala, I mean, hasn't seen the movement of the lion, so it probably doesn't even know, or it actually definitely doesn't know that that lion is there. I think it's one pretty lucky impala. And one very sleepy lioness. Interesting. I suppose, I mean, that lioness is an older lioness. She's experienced. She knows how to hunt. So if she picked up her head and saw that impala, I think she would realize that, you know, her cover would be blown as soon as she moves. And that impala is incredibly agile. It's got a very, very good acceleration off of the mark. And so it wouldn't really even bother in hunting it. I'm sure she's just enjoying the warm sun on the heating up the sand. It'll be interesting to see where this lioness in particular goes tonight. In this, I'm sure the lioness with the cubs is going to stick around, but I pointed out the map where the rest of the pride was seen a couple of days ago, so I'm sure that lioness, you know, might end up calling and trying to find the pride again. I doubt whether there'll be too much in terms of vocalizations and calling around this area, because this female doesn't want to draw any attention towards herself, so she wouldn't necessarily call out and attract unwanted attention in the form of anything really, of hyenas, of other lions. She's just trying to remain as hidden as possible. Yeah, so whilst we sitting around still not doing much, you can see that cover's just moving again. There we go. Very cool. We'll try and reposition and see if we can get a spot where there might be a slightly more stable line of signal, but in the meantime we'll send you across to Tristan.
As you can see, we're sitting very, very still, not repositioning at all, gazing upon very, very pretty sunset. It's not often you get clouds like this and the sun setting at this time of the year, so nice just to kind of watch it, and especially with that sort of dead tree. Very artistic, David, well done. It makes for a very wintry, cold feel, and it is getting quite cold now, but we just came towards Gallagher Pan area just to try and sit and listen for a little bit. I sometimes find that, you know, we end up driving all the time, and, you know, especially when it's a quiet afternoon, we typically tend to try and be places and look places and go and kind of do things, but actually sometimes the best trick is just to sit and listen and basically just take it easy for a little bit. At this time of the day is when things start to happen, and you'll start to see things like leopards and lions and the likes moving. And the wind is also starting to drop a little bit, so if there's any sort of alarm calls or anything like that, it's very possible that you can hear something and maybe help you in terms of finding an animal. So I often find sitting at this time of the day is a good thing. David and I have been sitting here for quite a while already, so we're going to carry on now because we haven't heard anything, but I just thought it would be a good idea to come to a little pan like this. At this time of the year, there is still a lot of water, as we were referring to earlier, but you know, this is fresh, clean, pumped water, so sometimes the animals prefer this than anything else and kind of make their way to it. So it's a good thing to check. James, who's 10 years old, do we ever use drones to find animals or for conservation work? David? Sometimes. We used to, until David had an accident with our drone. Hey, David. Oh, yeah. No. We used to use drone. We had a drone that actually had a thermal camera, allowed us to even fly at night and pick up the heat signatures of animals. So we used to use that. A normal drone in the daylight, it's not as easy as it sounds. Once you find an animal is one thing, but just flying a drone around trying to look for, especially things like cats during the day, is not actually easy at all, because they get in under trees and it can be quite tricky to spot them. So you've got to kind of wait until they're out or moving, then a drone will work. In terms of conservation work, there are some places that are using drones to patrol and kind of check areas, but it's still in its infancy, so most of the drone technology is only getting better day by day, and the better it gets, the more it will be able to be used in an area like this. But yeah, finding animals with that thermal drone was fun. We used to get some really cool stuff with it, and it helped us out a lot. But really only in winter, because in summer it was just too hot for the thermal drone to pick things up very well. In winter it worked really nicely, and we were able to find quite a lot of, particularly leopards, using it. We got quite good with the leopards in the drone, so we have used drones in the past. We don't use it anymore, like I say, because unfortunately that drone had a little bit of an accident and ended up crashing to the ground and was very badly damaged, so still needs to be looked after and sorted out. Anyway, we're going to keep going. I'm going to just do maybe a little bit of a loop around quarantine area, just check around, see if I can find any sign of where potentially a leopard could be. And while we do that, let's send you back across to Eric with his lions.
We have seen that cub very briefly, pretty much exactly the same view we had with you a little bit earlier on, so just a little flick of the ear every now and again. But what I saw, there we go, see, there we go. Looks like the two of them might actually be playing with one another, this cute little tail that's just stuck up. So what I actually saw, which gave me a lot of hope, was the female actually picked up her back right leg, so the one that we can see, and looked like she was trying to get the cubs off of her teat. And so she might have just thought that enough is enough. It's time for the cubs to stop drinking. And look, as soon as that's happened, it seems like, there we go, yes, there's the other one on the left. Awesome. Now all they need to do is come and give the mother some attention, and then we'll get such an amazing view. Looks like the two of them are playing around with one another now. There we go. It's coming out. Come on, come closer. Yes. Yes. This is awesome. That one's coming out to have a look at us. Amanda, these cubs will probably only start getting introduced into the pride within the next month or two. So when they're around about 2 to 3 months old, and it will basically, once they're ready to start feeding on meat, she'll slowly but surely start introducing them to the rest of the pride, especially if there's a kill around. She doesn't keep them there for too long, and the reason being, because these cubs are still so small and still quite vulnerable, the older cubs will sometimes be very, very curious, and so they'll, not intentionally, but they'll play a little bit too rough with these cubs and sometimes cause them injury. So she likes to come and introduce them, let them meet, and then sometimes could be a couple of hours she'll leave the pride and take them away. This is awesome. So from pretty much the age of about 6 months is when they'll be permanently based with the pride and following the rest of the pride. They've got these tiny, short little legs, and they basically have to run to keep up with the rest of the prides. Minamu, they'll start eating meat from anywhere from about 2 months old or so. And it just depends on the female. If she makes a kill close enough to the den site, she could introduce them to the kill a little bit earlier than 2 months, but that typically is the right age. And from the age of 2 months, they'll still be drinking, and then as they get older, they'll be eating more and more meat, and then eventually, when they are about probably close to 6 or 7 months old, is when she'll stop them drinking milk, and then it will basically be a solid meat diet from that age. It's really cool that they're now moving around a bit more. let's just look at the body of that little cub in comparison to the head of that lioness. It's literally smaller than just the head of the mother. It's amazing. We're getting such a nice view of the back of their heads. I want them to turn around. Hello, there we go. Go in and annoy your mum. Oh, yes, those faces are just absolutely incredible. Yeah, the viewers are enjoying the sighting, saying how cute these little lion cubs are, and I agree. We have this conversation quite a lot, and you're lucky enough in Karongwe to see cheetah cubs, and recently in Djuma you've seen leopard cubs. So we've had the 3 big cats and their cubs within the last 2 weeks of one another. So it's been quite fascinating to see. But for me, I don't know, I think it depends on, I guess, what I see most recently, but they are on top of the list. I wonder where they've gone to now. And I guess from this age they'll be more and more exploratory. So especially when the mother's around, they'll be investigating the sights and the sounds of the bush around them. So you might find that every now and again, if the mother thinks they're getting too far away, she'll pick up her head. Just soft little contact calls to bring them back. We talk about how vulnerable they are at this stage, and I guess this probably isn't thinking about it. I don't know if that's absolutely correct. Rachel, this lioness, is the youngest female of the Birmingham Pride, and this is her first litter. So she is the sister of that young male who we've seen recently with that injury on his back left leg. And so they are approximately 4.5 years old. And so this is her very, very first litter. So she's doing incredibly well to keep the cubs alive. And I was saying, like now, let's go and see. The older lioness has got her heads up. Cool. So, I mean, it's some very good signs for us that lioness has got her head up, so she could come and try and meet the cubs. The cubs are a little bit more active, so we're definitely not going anywhere. If our view changes of the cubs, I'm sure we'll come straight back here. But in the meantime, we'll send you across to Lauren.
Sadly, I don't have an update. BK and I were just saying we have travelled almost the whole length of the northern cut line. Driving slowly, looking on both sides, it gives you the advantage of A, being able to see Djuma, B, being able to see Buffelshoek, and C, I don't know why I said 2 there, C, being able to see if anything crosses. This is your answer. This big highway in front of you will tell you has anything gone in or has anything came out. And that's why I really like boundary lines. It's a great place to start, but sadly nothing. And I wonder, oh, that's plastic, sorry everyone, I'm sorry, I can't drive past it. I have no idea what it is. I wonder if I can hang off the seat, do the lazy mode and not actually get out the vehicle. Do you think it's possible? I'm not too sure about this. I'm going to hang on to the steering wheel. Oh, no, it's not possible. I have to go for the unlazy option. I have no idea what this is. I don't know. Snapple? Yes, it does look like the back of a plug. Well, there you have it. Sorry, I just cannot drive past it. I don't believe anyone will have put that there intentionally, though. It's probably blown by the wind. Wind blows plastic everywhere, of course it does. And that's mostly how it ends up in the ocean. Through wind. So yes, what was I saying before I got distracted? Wow, look at that. Wow. I know we've already given you a view of the sky, but BK, let's give a rolling mobile. I'm going to get past this tree, and then I'm going to give you a proper view.
Might be off.
Smoke. I wonder if there's controlled burning going on over there. Now they do have fires here, and normally they're controlled, and it's a method of conservation. I mentioned that quite a lot, but that's why we have the fire breaks here. We have roads called the fire breaks because they actually are fire breaks, and it's a method of control. It can stimulate vegetation into regrowing. It can control invasive species, and it can also just control the spread of fire. So we're going into dry season where everything will be very dry, very harsh, and easily flammable. So of course, if there's a fire up in Buffelshoek, you don't want the wind to bring it all the way into Djuma. So if you have a fire break, which is an area that's already been burned and there's really nothing there, it's barren, then it will stop the fire spreading into Djuma. So that's what the fire breaks actually are here for. I don't quite know where that smoke's coming from. Unless the sun is on fire. Gremlins. You're saying it looks like I'm on Mars. Maybe I am, gremlins. Maybe we are going live on Mars. I have to show you another version of Mars, so just let me get it ready, BK. In Ethiopia, there's a place called the Danakil Depression. I recommend anybody to look it up if you're interested. It's said to be the hottest, driest, and lowest place on Earth combined. And it's called the Danakil Depression because it's a geological depression of 3 tectonic plates in the Horn of Africa. And it's way, way below sea level, and nothing can survive there. So Darby and I went to visit, and I'm just going to show you so that you can see what it really looks like when you're on Mars. We felt like we were on Mars the entire time, and we weren't. We were just in a very, very special region of Ethiopia. I'm just trying to find the best region of it. There's sulfur pools. Yes, I'm going to show you a photo with Darby and I in it, which is slightly cheesy. It's like sharing our holiday album with you, but I think it is the best way to show you this image. BK, are you ready? So excuse the cheesiness. Oh, we'll just wait till the sun goes down. BK's eyeballing me. Lauren, the sun's almost down. Beautifully done, BK. Excuse the holiday snap, but I just have to show you. This is what the Danakil Depression in Ethiopia looks like. Just ignore Darby and I. What I'm trying to show you is a landscape. Now those colours that you can see that look like it's been painted with highlighters, neon yellow, neon green, orange, that's real colours. Nothing has been edited here, nothing has been photoshopped. And that is what it looks like at the Danakil Depression. Nothing can survive there. It's void of all life. You're only allowed to go there between a specific time period, time window, because it gets too hot that a lot of tourists have died. One lady got lost. I'm not entirely sure how she got lost. And she died. It's so hot. It's incredibly hot. And it's a really, really fascinating area. And they do believe that in the future, not now, millions of years into the future, the tectonic plates are going to separate. There's 3 tectonic plates. And it's just an Impala. And the volcanic activity is still going to continue. There's lots of volcanic activity in Ethiopia, in this specific area. And therefore, it's going to be the birthplace of a new ocean, because the Red Sea is going to spill over into this area. And the Danakil Depression itself is so low that it's going to be the birthplace of a new ocean. Now, whether that happens or not, we don't know. That's the theory of the Danakil Depression. Fascinating. Google it. It's very interesting. Barry, you're saying it looks cheesy. It looks like we're on the moon. The Wallace and Gromit moon. You know when Wallace and Gromit go to the moon and cut a slice of cheese and put it on crackers? You're right, Barry. It looks like that. Okay, now I'm going to check the western boundary. Why? Well, I've done every single other boundary today, so I may as well do the west. And as I make my way there, we are going to send you back across to Tristan.
I was just actually discussing with David that we were saying that Lauren has been on a boundary patrol this evening, or this afternoon, should I say. And so might as well complete it on that western side. We're central Djuma at the moment, just scrounging around and checking things out, and so far no sign of anything that's been moving around during the course of the day, unfortunately. So just kind of re-driven some of the roads that I drove just in case this female leopard track that we had on quarantine had come over any of our tracks, but it doesn't seem like that is the case. So it's now just about, I think, a bit of pot luck and hoping that we can pick up some tracks somewhere. You know, if Tundi and cubs are in Torchwood, and I don't know where Tingana is. So one of the things as well that we were talking about now is that it takes you a while to get back into things because of the way that animals' territories and distributions and paths and things change over time. So, you know, like what Tingana was doing 6 months ago is not what Tingana is doing now. And it just takes you a few days to dial in. Well, that's good news. So apparently Eric has got a view of the cubs, so rather than me waffling on about leopards' territories, it sends you across to him so you guys can get a little cuteness overload.
Fuck. We were just moving away. Actually, we thought the cubs were resting, and we were going to go have a look at the lioness, and she was looking in one spot through the gap of the trees, and we just managed to get a view of one of the cubs, but unfortunately it looks like it slunk back down towards the mother. It might have felt a little bit vulnerable being by itself, so it was maybe about a 2-second view, so you didn't miss out on too much. So we're thinking of just going to have a look at this other lioness, and she's showing sign of movement. She's cleaning and grooming herself, so I'm just going to reverse straight back on the track, and we'll see this beautiful lioness who's starting to get her evening going. Let me know, Owen, is that good? Cool. We still do have a view of the channel that we saw the cubs, so I'll keep an eye on that channel, and if they pop into view again, I'll be sure to have a look. One thing I noticed is this lioness was looking across into that gap, and that's what made me divert my attention there, and it's when we had the view of the cub. And now, very good signs for us. She's got the head up, look at the yawn, she's cleaning. So this is exactly what we want to be seeing with this lioness. So yeah, we're trying to put the puzzle pieces together, you know. Where is she going to go? Is she going to stick around here and wait for the pride to call and try and find them that way? Or is she going to take the initiative and go off looking herself? And this riverbed has certainly been fruitful for this pride of lions. I mean, she gave birth in this riverbed. Her sister gave birth in this riverbed. Both of her mother and her auntie in the last year have given birth. All 5 of these lionesses within the last year and a half have all given birth in the Timavati River. And just look at how Sassy Cassie, you're asking how mothers discipline their cubs, and that they communicate with one another through a few verbal expressions. And when a cub is annoying a mother, you'll hear that very low growl. And if that gets ignored, you might find that they might give a little snap and a slightly more aggressive vocalization. And then I'm sure the cub will see in the body language of the mother, you know, she might be quite aggressive towards it. But, I mean, a lot of the time, some of the discipline might actually happen with the rest of the pride members. And I mean, I can think of a cub around a carcass will definitely, if it tries to push its luck too much, oh, look, it's getting up. No, it just wants to scratch itself. Now, if it wants to get disciplined, I mean, if it's pushing its luck and testing the boundaries, then another older lioness will definitely put it in its place. This lioness is really beautiful. She's in such good condition. The whole pride is thriving at the moment. It's really, really nice to see. She keeps looking in that direction, and I keep watching where she's looking, but still no view of the little cub that we saw a bit earlier on. Hitting the right spot there. Hitting the right spot there. So we've still got another 15-20 minutes of light to hang around here, and if anything changes, I'm sure we'll see you again quite shortly. But I believe Tristan was in a very interesting discussion about leopards, so we'll let him finish his story. So back over to Djuma.
Well, I suppose we can finish it all. I wasn't too in depth with things, but basically I was just saying that often when you're away for a little bit, the patterns of animals change. So whether it be leopard, lions, hyena, whatever it is, the pattern changes, particularly over the course of the last 6 months because of the late rainfall that we had and the way that the bush has changed. It's so different to what it was a year ago, or 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's kind of changed the way certain animals have moved. So it always takes a little bit of time just to get back into that. When you live permanently in the reserve, you get so kind of in tune with what's going on that you end up being able to start predicting the right places to check for the certain animals. And when you go away for a while, and like I say, it's been a long time. I've only, I think, spent about 4 weeks on Djuma since November, which is not very long at all. Things become a little bit more tricky, and you've got to sort of take a few days just to work things out. So now that we have driven around a little bit, I'm pretty sure things will change. Also, the weather's not been great today, and as soon as we get a nice clear day with not too much wind, I'm pretty sure we'll see a lot of things coming out. In saying that though, I mean, we haven't had it bad. We've had lots of ellies, we had buff this morning, which is a nice surprise. It's just been a little bit quiet on the leopard front, but they're here, they've got, the tracks are everywhere. It's just a matter of timing and a bit of luck to be able to find them. I was also saying to David that we're probably about a month away, I reckon, from our leopard viewing going back to what it normally could be, or it was last year. And the reason for that is that there's still quite a lot of water sitting in these little mud wallows. So a lot of the mud wallows are still housing little puddles and little bits of water here and there. And that means that leopard in particular, and lions to a degree, they would prefer to drink from those little wallows than they would from something like a big dam, like Buffels Hook or Gowrie Dam or Chitwa Dam. And the reason is that those dams, because of their size, could easily house crocodiles, and therefore making those cats a little bit more nervous. A small little puddle is going to be a much safer option. It's often also a lot more sheltered, and if they're going to hunt things like impalas and the likes that come to those waterholes, there's often a lot more cover at those smaller pads and a lot more chance that those animals are going to walk very close to where they are. And if you watch Tosana over the years, it was one of his strategies was just to sit at a pan and wait for things to come down. Now, as soon as we start to get drier and obviously the cold comes in and the grass starts to die down, and we end up with a situation where there's only really certain water points like Twin Dams, Treehouse, Buffelshoek, Gowrie, you're going to find that these cats in particular are going to have to go to those a lot more, and then it's going to be much easier to kind of find them. The winter period is always a lot easier also because the bush starts to die back and you can see a little bit easier. But I think in about a month's time we should be really in kind of prime time for a lot more spotty cats. Jim, I mean, I think the biggest problem and reason why we don't see a lot of crocs here at Djuma is that we don't really have any major river systems that feed any of our water points or run through the area. So, you know, the closest major waterway is the Sand River, which is a long way away, and it would require probably the Manyeleti or not even the Manyeleti, the Mulawati more than anything else, to flow for a number of days and to be deep for crocodiles potentially to make their way up all the way from the Sand River, up the Manyeleti, up the Mulawati, and then into the various water holes here. So I think that's one reason why we don't see a lot of them. The second reason is that the two crocs that we do see, which are generally at Chitwa Dam, seem to really struggle in terms of their little ones surviving. And whether that's because, you know, Chitwa Dam itself has been subject to quite a huge fluctuation of water over the course of the last few years, and that's caused these little crocs to be confined into spaces that they can be hunted by fish eagles and leopards and all kinds of other things. I don't know, but I suspect that we just don't have great nesting places due to a high density of other predators, and just not a high population of crocodiles in the area means that it's tough for those two to actually have more all the time. And even if they do have more, because of the way that Chitwa Dam shrinks, they're going to start chasing certain rivals out who are then going to walk further afield. And as we've seen on Djuma, crocs can walk a long way. I mean, we've had crocs walk from Twin Dams to Buffels Hook Dam, and so they can go all the way down to the Sand River eventually and go and kind of find a better habitat down there. So I think it's just that we don't have great habitat, and we have had so many years of dry weather that the crocs I don't think have done that well because of it. They've all been forced into one place and therefore competition and those kind of things. So yeah, the lack of a big river is probably the reason we see so few crocs. Probably my guess as to why we're seeing so few. It's also, there's been quite a few complications within the greater Kruger system, particularly in the two big rivers to our north, which is the Olifants and Otaba, with crocs basically taking in toxins, which is causing their numbers to decrease quite rapidly, particularly in the Olifants. All right, so well, we're going to check around Treehouse Dam. We're going to just scratch, maybe we get a sighting of Mulawati, the little ghost leopard that hangs around down here. And so while we do that, let's send you back across to Lauren, who's still continuing her boundary patrol.
I love the way Tristan says scratch around. Scratch around. It's definitely a Tristan phrase. I've adopted it for sure. And it definitely comes from Tristan. He's going to scratch around. Love it. Now, the wind is picked up. It's that time of night where I've got my lights on, but to be honest, it's not making too much of a difference. Very difficult to see. Something was moving there, BK. I'm not sure if it was just an Impala or not. Okay, I'm just going to try and figure out what's catching my eye here. It's probably an Impala, but while I do that, we are going to send you back across to Eric in black and white. Impala.
So we have decided to switch over to infrared. That's why the picture is black and white, and it's not because it's pitch back. It's only because we're at that distance where it's just super grainy and we can't really get a good view in normal light. So we've only got another 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes until it gets dark, and once it gets dark we'll leave. But we did have a brief view of the cubs in the grass, And there you go, on the mum again. There you go, right there, both of them are there. Oh, awesome. Looks like they're starting to get a little bit more active. The mother's got her head up. So the signal might be a little bit jumpy and the feed might not be clear, but we've got a view of the cubs, and that's the most important thing. So that the patience has paid off. Looks like the cubs on full bellies are really starting to get a little bit more active, and they've finally shown themselves really nicely. And just in the nick of time, we'll leave them within the next few minutes or so. That lioness that we saw on the riverbed a bit earlier has actually gotten up and walked away from them, and some alarm calls from Impala after seeing that walking spurred this female to pick up her head, and I think her pick head might have initiated the cubs to come over and say hello. She's looking straight at us. It looks like the two cubs are still playing around, maybe with the tail. Really quite special. I love the innocence of youth. I got the very end of that king quad, but you're saying that the mandatory bouncing. Pouncing, not bouncing. Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, from this age, they've got those techniques that they need to practice and hone in on before they become skilled hunters like that like their mother is. And so practicing on each other is a very, very good way of doing that. Pouncing, biting, stalking up to one another, it all basically is just helping them develop their skills until they really reach that age where they need to use them in a life and death situation. Yes, it does look like the cubs are out and about and playing a little bit. It is getting to the point where it's getting dark, and we don't want to draw any unwanted attention to these cubs. So we are actually going to send you across to Tristan and probably say goodbye to these cubs for the day. There's still tomorrow that we might be able to see them. So we'll send you across there shortly.
Well, it seems like a lovely afternoon with those lion cubs again. They are very, very cute. I saw some footage of them the other day. It's always nice when you've got a den. It's a wonderful thing to have. And as Eric was saying earlier, it's been lovely to have so many cubs around between hyenas and cheetah and leopard and lions. I think it's now just time for a dog den is what we really need now. I don't think we'll have a dog den on Djuma, and we would have probably seen the dogs hanging around a lot more. I know there was a bit of a purple patch where there were lots of sightings of dogs lately, but you would need a lot more sightings of a very heavily pregnant female in order to kind of get a den. But I know that up at Ngala, the dogs have, I think Marcel was saying to me, 9 of the last 10 years they've denned there. So maybe they'll get lucky and den there again this year, and the guys will find it, because that would be amazing if we had leopard cubs, cheetah cubs, dog den, lion cubs. We would have made a very successful lockdown period, that's for sure. All we need now is obviously Tanya to come back to Djuma to stop spending so much time on Torchwood. That would be quite nice if she would do that. I think actually tomorrow morning I might shoot to Chitwa to go and see if I can find maybe Kuchava or Sabui. They also, I suppose, must be hanging around somewhere too. Jacob, you're asking about cubs getting scraps as opposed to being the priority at a carcass. Well, the thing is about cubs is that generally, it depends on how small a cub we're talking about here, but and which species. I suspect you're referring more towards lions than leopards. Leopards are quite interesting. Often when you see a female leopard lead her cubs to a kill, the cub actually feeds before the female does. If she hadn't fed, obviously, before she went and fetched the cub, which does happen. But lions, the reason for it is if they're still suckling, they're getting quite a lot of nutrients from their mothers already from the milk. And lions themselves obviously need to eat, and there's a lot of competition that takes place at carcasses for the reason that everybody's trying to survive. It's kind of a thing that is in wild animals, and you see it even with antelope species, is that they don't protect their offspring when they get chased by a predator all that often. Obviously buffalo is maybe a little bit of an exception to that rule, but even then they know sometimes not to even risk it. So it's basically survival of the fittest. They know they have to eat, they'll try and consume, and the cubs get their diet supplemented with milk. Now what's interesting with milk of things like lions and leopards is that it doesn't matter if the adults are feeding. So if the adults are not getting a lot of food, the composition of the milk doesn't actually change too much. A lioness or a leopardess body will actually consume itself in order to produce good nutrients for the little cubs. So it's probably why you see that they don't get priority at kills, is because they're actually getting good nutrients from the mother. Once they're a little bit older and they're not suckling, in the case of lions, it's generally that they're big enough to start vying for position at the carcass and start to really kind of challenge one another. And if there's not too much there, then it's part of again, survival of the strongest gene, is that if they can't wrestle and get themselves in there to actually get food, then they're not the strongest genetic part of the pride, and therefore might succumb. So that's pretty much why it's like that. So 50, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why she's moving her cubs as often as she is. Whether it's to do with the last litter being lost. Ultimately, that last litter that she lost, as far as we know, is the first time that she's lost an entire litter. And so maybe that's why she's being a lot more cautious with this set and moving them so regularly. But yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's to do with the fact that the males are just so all over the show on Djuma at the moment. Tingana kind of is seemingly pushing more and more to the northeast. Mulawati is around, Sokomori is in and out. So I don't know, maybe that's what it is. It's just the lack of a really stable, dominant male that is central to this particular part of the Sabi Sands, that she's moving cubs a lot just in fear of them being taken by an opposing male. So it could be one side of it. Could be the fact that she feels like now that there's a hyena den that's close by, that she's got to move them a lot, because obviously they're dangerous for the cubs. So yeah, there's a number of factors that take place with her, but she has moved them a lot more than I expected. She's been all over the place by the sounds of things. And even the last set, though, she wasn't exactly stationary with those cubs. I mean, I remember that in the space of basically a month, we saw her in 3 different dens, which is pretty quick. So I don't know, there's obviously something that she feels like she needs to move them all the time, and I suspect it's got to do with hyena numbers and male leopards more than anything else. Alright, well, we're going to just check around Chelapan now and then go along Ingwe Alley, because, well, Ingwe Alley, his name means leopard, so hopefully we'll get lucky. And so while we do that, let's send you across to Lauren and see what she thinks about Tandi's cubs being moved all over the place.
I have the same thought, Tristan. Let's go along Ingwe Alley and hope that we find an Ingwe. Makes absolutely no sense, but it runs through my head all the time as well. I have had some Ingwes on Ingwe Alley, and it's joyous. But Jess, going back on what Tristan said, wouldn't it be fantastic to have a wild dog den on Djuma. Oof. I cannot even imagine how it would feel to see those puppies. I really, really couldn't even begin to understand and watch the dynamics on a daily basis, how the pack cater for the pups. Oh, I think that would be amazing. We've been blessed though, as Eric originally mentioned, cheetah cubs, lion cubs, leopard cubs. We've had Kuchava's son, Sabui's pair, Tandy's pair, briefly, and of course our little hyena munchkins. So we're very, very lucky, but wild dogs would just top that off. And I think the wild dogs really don't den here for many reasons. I think the biggest reason is the high density of predators. Although we've not done very well at finding them for you the past few days, this sort of northern sector of the Sabi Sands has a really high density of leopards, lions and hyenas. So wild dogs have got to choose somewhere where they can keep their pups stashed. It's nice and safe. And I think that's why they don't den on Djuma. But you never know. I believe Londolozi just found a den after 10 years. I saw that video on Facebook. They've never had a wild dog den in 10 years and they've just found one. So as Tristan mentioned, things shift. Nothing's static. Nature changes everything. Geography-wise, geological-wise, everything. So maybe one day we'll have a wild dog den here. Be really, really lovely. And Zephyr, you're saying, I guess we can't have it all, but can't we? No, you're right, we can't have it all. We're very, very lucky right now. We've had a few quiet days, but my past 3 weeks have been incredible. In Kahumas, every single leopard that I could imagine. I would just really love to see Tandy's cubs properly. It's my dream. Good old Tandy girl. Emma's all tongue-tied. I think she's getting hungry. Okay, I really, really am searching for any nocturnal animals now as the light has disappeared. And as I do that, we're going to send you across to Eric, who's really had his cup full for today.
Absolutely had my full of cubs. That's why we decided to move off. It was also getting a bit too dark and we decided to leave them be. Wild dog pups, I must say, would be absolutely beautiful. I know within this great national park of ours, the first litters of the season are already being born. We are searching high and low and quite desperately looking for any sign of the pack that we've been seeing over the last couple of months to see if whether they might be looking for a place to den. We're hoping so, but we haven't seen any fresh signs yet. So you might be able to see some Impala in front of us. We're just going to drive nice and slowly past them. And I do believe M from Final Control, the director of this afternoon, is just mentioning that a few people are still asking about that young male lion that was injured that we saw about a week ago. And unfortunately still no updates on him. We haven't been able to find him. If you were with us looking at the map of the reserve and I explained exactly where those lions are, the last time we saw him was 2 or 3 days ago in that area, and he was still not looking too healthy, but he wasn't looking completely miserable and unhealthy. So there's a good chance that he'll pull back. I mean, I'm sure all of the guys have been saying how resilient he is and how much he just keeps on fighting, so he will be fine. What I really do love is how the viewers are invested in these animals. So Steve, you're asking how a pride and a coalition are different. And so a pride of lions is essentially females and their offspring. They are pretty constant and they don't really change around too much. Male coalitions, or coalitions at least, are males. And so they are basically from the same litter, or at least from the same pride. They are males that leave together at the same time, and just increases their chances to take over new land, to protect themselves. And so sometimes you'll be able to see a coalition of up to 5 or 6 males. And they will come into a pride of lions, so into that female core, and take over for a couple of years, but then eventually they get ousted by a new, stronger, younger coalition. And so the female pride of lions is much more constant. You'll find a coalition who is basically the dominant males within the pride, but that might only last for a number of years before they get ousted, and then that pride will remain constant at least for another 10, 15 years or so. We were actually discussing it a couple of days ago, and I mean, this pride runs the risk of almost becoming too successful. So there's just, you know, if all of the cubs make it to adulthood and they give another, or they breed another litter, means that there's lots and lots of mouths to feed, and sometimes if the pride is too successful, it leads to the demise of the pride. There's too much competition within pride, they need to fight a lot more food, so they might eventually split, and it's exactly what happened to the pride of lions that we see a lot. The Birmingham pride split away and became the Birmingham breakaway pride, and be the actual Birmingham pride within Ngala. So we are slowly making our way back towards the direction of the tented camp. That's where we young male leopard, so we'll have a quick little search for him, and if we don't find him, it might be the last time we see you, so potentially a good night, and we'll send you across to Lauren to see what she's finding. Hopefully lots of leopards for you.
I feel like the update of the back of my head needs to be the new phrase. I have not done well at finding animals today, and it's not for the lack of trying. I promise you, Beaky and I have checked every single road. Oh, we did have ground hornbills and elephants, that is true, but you have seen a lot of the back of my head. I apologize. Yes, you are right. You are right. I have had luck, everyone. And I had the hyena incredible interaction this morning. But there's red eyes in there. I don't think it's a predator, but let me just check what it is. And Comet, I really think that this is the first time, can you see those eyes? Is it just an ant's hope? That I have had such a close encounter with Comet. Because I didn't realize his eye was quite like this. I wonder if it's just a wildebeest, Beaky. I think it, I'm not sure. Something's there. Hold on. There. In my spotlight, I've got a big red eye. Nope. Much bigger than that, off the ground. I don't actually know how to direct you. We're looking at it from two different angles. Hold on. Let me figure this out. So Beaky and I are looking from, Beaky is about what? A meter and a bit behind me. But there's something there. The eyes are flashing at me. You don't see it, Beaky? Ah. Did you see the eye shine? I don't know what it is, so I really have no idea what it is. I just see eye shine. I wonder if it's a bush baby. You see it? Okay. There we go. There's the eye shine. Is it a bush baby? Oh, yes, it's moving. Okay, that's really terrible visuals, everyone, but it's a bush. Oh, wow. Yes! You see that? Well done, Beaky. It took a while, but we got there. It's very difficult for me to describe to Beaky where to look as well. We just have slightly different angles. He can't always see the eye shine that I can see. Oh, how cool. Now, we don't have any artificial light on this animal. None whatsoever. I was using my spotlight to see the eye shine, yes. but then BK takes over with the infrared light, and that's exactly why we have it. It's a fantastic tool. I have to say, there's lots of, how can I say this correctly? There you're saying, yay, a bush baby. I mean, it's not the best visuals, but it's checking us out for sure. You can see the size of those eyes. That shows you straight away they're nocturnal. Yes, I have to say, I see some fantastic photos on Facebook of people taking photographs, and they're great photographers. No criticism, but in order to get such a great photo, they are really, really blinding that animal with a spotlight. And I have to say, in all my experience now, I'm not a fan of that whatsoever, really. I mean, you see a predator and it's nighttime, and of course you really want to take a good photo, but shining a spotlight on it to get a photo, I have to say, I'm not for it. I'm really not. And that's why we use infrared light here. It's a really, really fantastic tool. So as I use my spotlight not to blind any animals, we are going to send you across to Tristan, who's also respectfully using his spotlight.
Indeed, Lauren. Trying to, at least. It's one thing that drives me crazy is when I see a spotlight that is being used to obliterate an animal's eyes. It's something that when you go into some places, I won't mention where, but people get like 3 spotlights onto a vehicle, and then it's just people shining in all directions, and poor impalas and kudus and elephants and all kinds of things are getting blasted with spotlights, and so not ideal at all. If you're ever out in the bush at night, be diligent about your use of a spotlight. Try and shine it around, and if you pick up eyes and you can see that it is not a predator, don't keep shining on it, just kind of shine away from it and leave them alone. There was apparently a study done where it said that Impala's eyes take almost 90 minutes to rectify after a light being shone in them that is powerful like these spotlights. So, you know, I'm not sure how true it is. I know it's exactly it. It is a bit aggressive, but I'm not sure how valid it is, because I've heard both schools of thought. Some people say that it doesn't affect them at all, particularly predators. They're able to constrict their pupils enough that it doesn't do anything, but I can't see how there isn't some sort of effect of a light sitting in your eyes. I mean, we as humans, you shine a spotlight at someone's face and you realize very quickly that it's not the most comfortable of situations to have. So it's better just to err on the side of caution. And if you do use spotlights for photography, which is possible, you may say upper bush ethic is envy. Yes, well, I suppose in some ways. What is that? Steenbok. I thought for a second it was a jackal. I know a jackal was seen by somebody this morning on quarantine, so for a second there I was about to get excited. I like seeing jackals, and we don't see them much at all, so it would be nice to see it. There's a kudu as well. Seems like everybody's out on quarantine this evening. But what was I going to say now? You can do photography with spotlights. There's really nice ways to do things with the spotlight. You've just got to be really kind of careful about the way that you do it. I actually was talking about this a few weeks ago. I did an Instagram live for WildEarth, and we were talking about spotlight photography. And so generally, if you're going to photograph an animal using a spotlight and it's front on like we are now, so let's say I'm hypothetically shining straight in the front, you're going to try and bounce that off the sort of road if it's a cat and it's sitting, or its chest area is where the sort of hot spot of the light is going to be, and then there's a bit of a periphery that will catch the face, and then you'll be able to kind of do it that way. But I think the best thing to do with spotlights is generally side lighting or backlighting with them. You get some really cool effects that you can do with a spotlight. I had got a photo of a lion quite a while ago that actually came out. I don't even know if I've got it with me. I'll try and check. But the lion that was backlit. I think I have it here somewhere. Might be. No. Sorry, guys. Trying to find it. I know I'm multitasking. Spotlight, phone, and driving. if your kids are watching, don't do this if you're learning to drive. This is not what you should be doing, particularly not on a normal road. Sorry, I'm trying to find a very specific folder. There it is. So, like I was saying earlier, if you're going to use spotlights and stuff, sometimes it's really nice to use kind of a side light or a backlight. So this was a young male lion that was sitting on a rock, and there was another vehicle in the sighting, and so you can see the kind of highlight of the spotlight is on the back side of his mane, so not in his eyes, and it just kind of creates a nice little sort of rim on it. So you can make out that it's a lion, but it gives it a bit of a mystery in the dark. So those are kind of good ways to use spotlights. But Lauren's right, is to blast it into the eyes is not generally ideal. All right, we're just going to check around this area again to see if there's any sign of anything. This is exactly where we had the guinea fowls alarm calling this morning, which of course could just have been a bird of prey, but you never know. And so while I check here, let's send you to Eric, who's got something interesting in a tree.
We have found something in a tree, and it's a genet. It's something we see very often, and usually not for this long. Usually you literally see darting across the road. So it's very cool that we got to see the little guy. Just look at the spot pattern. So a bit earlier on this morning, if anyone was watching, we were discussing how many different cats in this area, and I said that there's a few species that almost look a little bit like it, but aren't quite, and this of them. And look at the long stripes on the back, lots of spots, and just look at the coloration. I mean, you might not be too well. I mean, we are in infrared. I've got the red filter on, so you won't see too much in terms of color, but just look at the different one blacks are eyes. It is such a beautiful animal. It's hanging on the other side of the branch, but as soon as it looks over, you'll see these long stripe all the way down the tail. And it's just about to start its night, and so it might end up coming down this tree. Apparently the signal's not too good, but hopefully you get a nice clear picture. It looks like it is moving around a bit more, but I was just saying it's starting its day now, so it's going to be moving down the tree, probably looking for little things like insects, and might even feed on some fruit. Jata, I'm not on fire. I think Ngala's on fire. We're just lucky to be here. Yeah, Ngala, we always say that Ngala tends to look after its ranges very nicely, and it has definitely today. It is. I'm so glad that we've just got this tiny little window. I mean, you can see the bush around it. So if it moved literally a foot to the right or a foot to the left, we wouldn't have seen it. So, with that special little sighting of the genet, I am definitely going to say goodnight to you. It's up a little bit. I was hoping you'd see the tail. But anyway, I'll say goodnight to you, and I'll see you in the next 4 days or so. And we'll send you off to Lauren to say goodnight.
Now, I don't have a nocturnal animal, but it's still an animal that we don't see very often. It's a little steenbokkie. Tiny, tiny little steenbokkie. Just navigating his way in the dark, having supper. Very nervous. We don't have any lights. That reflective glare that you can see is coming from that layer in the eye that I always mention, the tapetum lucidum. And it's reflecting back from our infrared light. Taking all my headlights off. And I'm being very, very quiet. It's quite rare we get sightings of steenbokes during the day, never mind at night time. It's so sweet. Probably simply spends his evenings on quarantine. Utilize the Impalas. Be safe among others, and of course is open. You can see what's coming. So it has been a fantastic drive. Not many predators from Djuma's side, but it's still been incredible. A big thank you from everyone at andBeyond and Ngala, and of course us here at Djuma. It's been a pleasure having you. Please do join us tomorrow. Good night for now.